under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the April 28th, 2014 Board of Commissioners meeting. I'd like to start out tonight with two brief announcements. First is an announcement regarding the Ethics Board investigation that's underway right now. Our Township solicitor, John Rice, has decided to step down as the advisor to that board. Although there's no legal conflict, he's stepping down to so that the board can move forward expeditiously and without distraction and rancor and delay. Our manager, Mr. Zinskowski, will be recommending a replacement to us in short order. Second, I would like to remind everyone that for public comment, we will have a soft 5-minute rule as always, and that the public comment that is offered in the the opening of the meeting, is for those of you who are unable to stay through the meeting and comment at the appropriate time. And with that, I would like to invite public comment for anybody who would like to come up.
I hope I don't take 5 minutes. Hello, good evening. My name is Kim Cruz-Engelhard. I am the Assistant Parade Director for the Garrett Hill 4th of July Parade. I am here tonight representing the 4th of July Parade Committee. This July marks the 65th year of the parade, and every year following the parade, there is a community block party in Clem-McCrone Park. Between 1,500 and 2,000 people attend both the parade and the party in the park. The parade committee supports the proposed Clem-McCrone Park development plan. We have attended and expressed our concerns in the various meetings held prior to tonight. We like that the old foundation wall has been incorporated into the redesign. It allows the park to retain some of its quirky character. We like the new placement of the food pavilion. It is a good central location for our hot dog vendor, which is a very popular thing at our party. We like the idea of addressing the drainage problem in the back of the park. On several occasions, we have had a truck or two literally stuck in the mud in the back, and it also gives us more options on where to place our inflatables. We have 3 major concerns. One is the completion of the development all at once rather than in phases. Given the size and the usage of the park, doing it over phases would create a hardship for the community at large. Timing, for obvious reasons. The construction needs to start after July 4th and preferably be completed by March 1st so that Little League isn't impacted, but definitely completed by June 30th of the following year. And this one reigns for women. The women's bathroom. The current women's bathroom is a wide open space with 2 toilets and 1 sink. And most people who have or had kids in the Radnor rec programs know the combination for the door. And so you can just open up and walk in on somebody. So in the new comfort station, we would like stalls with doors. And in closing, the Garrett Hill Rosemont 4th of July Parade Committee urges the board to approve the Clem-McCrone development plan in its entirety. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who'd like to comment in the beginning of the meeting?
Hi, I'm John Child. I live at 308 Rockingham Road behind the park. Patty Barker couldn't be here tonight, but she had a statement, so if it's okay, I'll read that. Garrett Hill Coalition supports the Clem-McCrone Eastern Gateway Master Plan. Historically, Clem-McCrone Park is one of the most utilized parks in the township. It's widely used community gathering place and offers a variety of uses and activities. The tot lot, the ball fields, basketball courts, tennis courts, the wetland with the nature trail, 4th of July parade, of course, picnic grove, war memorial, concerts, joggers and walkers. Of course, you know all this. Garrett Hill has been waiting for a new restroom facility for many years. The state of the restroom has been deplorable for decades and has been an embarrassment to our community, particularly when we've hosted the annual 4th of July parade and township concerts. So this project is an opportunity to not only build new restroom, but an avenue to enhance, improve, and preserve the natural and man-made assets in our well-loved Clem-McCrone Park. Likewise, it is long overdue to clean up the spillway along the Route 100 line, the P&W line. It's an important and prominent gateway not only to Garrett Hill, but also to the whole of Radnor Township. Now it's Garrett Hill's turn. What's fair is fair. The community members were invited to be involved with the planning of these projects, participated in 3 public meetings, and have expressed support for the Kimmel-Bogret concepts. Garrett Hill Coalition supports these plans and respectfully requests that you vote for their approval. Please put Garrett Hill at the top of your list. Thank you for your service, Patty Barker, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else who'd like to comment before the meeting begins?
Hi. My name is Carol Solkowski, and I'd like to say a few quick words about the CICD ordinance. I won't be able to stay until the matter is properly before the board. I would like to remind the Board of Commissioners that the Radnor Charter, which governs them and all public employees and officials, requires that their conduct be, quote, above reproach. And I would like to ask the BOC to adhere to that very high standard. I've been getting these signals from the board's conduct that seem like, move along, there's nothing to see here. And I'm very concerned about the ethical lapses that have been alleged and the way that the board and the ethics committee are going to handle them. I was very glad to see that Commissioner Rice has recused himself. I don't see how he could possibly have acted as witness, advisor, and member of the ethics board. And now I'm asking the commissioners to finish the job of acting in a way that is above reproach. We have a commissioner accused of serious ethical lapses, lack of disclosure, accepting unlawful gifts, conflicts of interest, who's still sitting on the board. I believe someone with those kinds of ethical allegations against them should step down pending a positive inquiry by the Ethics Commission or a negative resolution. We also have a far-reaching ordinance that is going to change the landscape of this township irrevocably, not just in the Villanova area, but in many college areas. This is a far-reaching ordinance that was passed under the shadow of this ethics inquiry, and this should be rescinded and passed again by an impartial board that is not voted on by people with ethical conflicts or potential conflicts. It's really important to me that we have good, transparent, and ethical government in Radnor Township. I've lived here almost 20 years, and this is the first time I felt compelled to come to a Township Board of Commissioners meeting. And I think that some of the comments that have been made, including comments when I have emailed the board telling me that my opinions were, quote, patently absurd, are not worthy of this board. I think the taxpayers deserve better, and I think that we deserve a BOC that is, as the Township Charter calls for, above reproach. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Is there anybody else who'd like to comment?
Good evening. My name is Marty Costello. I am here tonight for the Saving Hollows Ground project, which, as you know, 3 or 4 years ago, we did the War Memorial. We have produced a few films. You perhaps remember seeing the St. Catherine's kids pull names out of a hat, and my one line in the show was, let's bring these soldiers back to life. Well, the reason I'm here tonight is Saturday evening at 5 o'clock in this room, we're remembering Lawrence James Marshall. Larry was a 1966 graduate of Radnor High School, co-captain of the basketball team, varsity soccer player, and upon graduation attended Villanova College with the NROTC program. He left possibly a very great naval career to drop out of college and join the Army to fight for his country. At the time, me and Larry are the same age, it was a very difficult time in this country for young men to do this, but Larry did it. Larry was killed in action in Vietnam, May 1st, 1968, about a half mile from the DMZ, with the 101st Airborne Division. It was a strike unit. Saturday afternoon, 5 o'clock, we will remember Lawrence James Marshall, remember his service, his life, and his heroism. And we are inviting the Saving Hollow Ground Project, everybody to come to view this. We'll have a lot of people here, some of the members of the Marshall family, and some special guests from the school board, the principal, the superintendent of schools, to make another announcement. But please come. You should do this, because without these men, Larry died about 4 weeks after his 20th birthday, we wouldn't have the rights, freedoms, and liberties that we have, that we enjoy, for citizens to come to speak their minds in a public hall. You don't get this in too many other countries, ladies and gentlemen. So please come, remember Larry, commercial, May 3rd, 5 o'clock in this room. And I want to personally thank our township manager and Jennifer, our secretary, for getting this together. This is really a remarkable thing, and I think it's the first time it's ever been done in these halls. Thank you. Please come. Remember this hero. God bless you.
Thank you, Marty. Is there anybody else who would like to make public comment before we begin? Okay, I would like to announce that we had an, oh, go ahead. Can you come up to the mic?
Just say your name. What's your name?
Kate.
Kate what?
Wasserman.
Where do you live?
Where?
What street?
Oak Towers.
That's right. And what are you here for tonight for? Why are we here?
What?
No Park.
No park.
Thank you, Park. Thank you, Park.
Thank you, park.
The top,
Thank you, park.
Thank you, Park.
Okay, we got it, loud and clear. Thank you very much for that input. Next for public comment?
I'm not envious at following that. Dan Sherry, Wayne. I was pleased to hear, as I was driving home from work tonight, I got a call that the solicitor has apparently voluntarily recused himself from the ethics board in the roughly 72 hours since Thursday's meeting, at which time the solicitor was quite adamant that he would not be recusing himself. Just for full disclosure, my name is Dan Sherry, as I said, and I represent Christina Peroni in that particular ethics complaint. With the caveat that apparently last Thursday's meeting was not the first meeting of that ethics board, that in fact they had met previously, as admitted by Mr. Rice at that meeting, and as also admitted by Mr. Rice at that meeting, there were apparently a number of discussions he had with members of the ethics board. I am happy to hear that at least any further damage by his involvement on that ethics board will now be mitigated through his recusal. What I wanted to talk about briefly tonight actually touches upon what you all came out of, presumably, which was executive session. Specifically, some comments that were made in the press by John Nagel a couple of weeks ago, on April 9th, 2014, to be specific. The name of the news article is Ethics Complaint Against Spengler Over Villanova Project Continues to Roil Radnor. That's R-O-I-L. And in this newspaper article, Mr. Nagel, who I guess would be properly termed as a somewhat unintentional whistleblower, let slip what was apparently discussed during executive session immediately prior to the March 31st, 2014 public meeting where the CICD vote was enacted. Specifically, this is, by the way, available on the Mainline Media News website. This is what Mr. Nagel informed the press as to what occurred. Quote, asked why the BOC hadn't waited for the Township's ethics board to investigate Peroni's complaint about Spengler, Nagel said the board met with its solicitor, John Rice, in executive session as a personnel matter. Rice explained that the risk of the board's CICD vote being overturned was, quote, minuscule, end quote, even if Spengler were to be found in violation of ethics rules. Nagel said the complaint would, quote, not stand the test, end quote. And for the CICD vote to be overturned, someone would need to file a lawsuit. Quote, we discussed it and we understood the risk, end quote, said Nagel. But he added, quote, I'm an engineer, not a lawyer. Now, As I said, this was back on April 9, 2014. To my knowledge, there has not been a request for any type of retraction for those quotations from John Nagel. Now, putting aside the commentary from Mr. Nagel, which is very disturbing, the idea that this board would strategize how to make a vote Teflon, for lack of a better word, an upcoming vote Teflon, despite looming ethics allegations. The meeting in executive session as a personnel matter of a commissioner I find deeply disturbing, and here's the reason why. Radnor's charter makes extremely clear when this board can go into executive session, okay? I don't know if this will pick it up on camera, I actually have a printout. Thank you for the time, Mr. Nagel, I appreciate that. You did take time to speak to Linda Stein regarding this article, so I think you can hear a little bit of this. Thank you. You can just zoom in on that lower document here. When this board meets in executive session, it's covered by section 2.09D in Radnor's charter, which is the governing law. And you see I've highlighted these plaques, but I will temporarily. I've highlighted here in this overall section 2.01, meeting procedures, administrative policy, how many times the word commissioner comes up. It's in the title, you see the green. It's in A, quorum. It's in C, special meetings. It's actually in section D2, you see the word commissioner. And on the next page.
Mr. Sherry, it's been 5 minutes. If you could wrap up your thoughts, we'd appreciate it.
I'll wrap up. See again, commissioner, 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 commissioner. When we look, however, in executive sessions, and remember, this is John Nagel being quoted as saying that you discussed Commissioner Spengler as a personnel matter. Personnel matter, not litigation, not some other type of exception. States as followed for personnel matter under executive sessions. D1, executive or closed session of the board shall be held only in accordance with the provisions and purposes defined by law and only when one or more of the subjects which follow are under consideration. And then subsection B says specifically personnel matters. Personnel matters concerning any individual employee, prospective employee, or appointee, period. That's it. So I don't know, and I don't expect to find out, unless someone is willing to come forward with this information, why somebody told you all it was appropriate to discuss Bill Spengler, a commissioner, as part and parcel of a personnel matter in executive session. It's not permitted by the charter. We can't go back and undo what was done in terms of that meeting. What we can do is find out what was discussed during that meeting and make you all aware going forward that that should not occur. I've been very concerned with respect to this Bill Spengler ethics investigation that there has been an attempt to morph this conversation into Commonwealth laws and Commonwealth rules as opposed to what this is all about, which is the charter and the code.
Mr. Sherry, it's been 7 minutes. If you could wrap it up right now, please.
Thank you. I also wanted to just say one thing in closing. I was heartened, again, hearing about the solicitor voluntarily stepping down. There was one comment by you, Commissioner Schaefer, that he was doing it to avoid, among other things, rancor. I would state that his involvement for the protracted period of time that he was involved invited such rancor, invited such distrust, and this board should be proactive in preventing that rather than attempting to mitigate it well after the fact. Thank you all.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anybody else who'd like to make public comment before the meeting begins? Okay. I'd like to announce that we had an executive session immediately preceding this meeting. All commissioners were present, and we discussed matters of personnel, litigation, real estate, and investigative matters covered by attorney-client privilege. Next, we move on to our consent agenda, and as we explain every meeting, the consent agenda is several items that we pass all together because they're very perfunctory in nature and they don't really merit discussion or debate. However, we give the opportunity for anybody on the board or in the audience to remove any of these items if you would like to hear some discussion or debate or explanation about them. So, would anybody like an item removed? Okay, with seeing none, can I have a motion for?
I'll move the approval of the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It passes 7-0. Next, we have an item about the Villanova University graduation. And I see we have some members from Villanova here that might want to give us an update on what's going on with Villanova's graduation ceremonies.
Good evening. My name is Chris Kowalski. I'm here representing Villanova University along with Dave Jajeski. Grateful for the opportunity to have tonight to be in front of you to talk about our graduation, our commencement ceremony coming up Friday, May 16th and Saturday, May 17th. There are some changes to the commencement schedule, and that would mean the schedule deviates from what we're all used to as a community. And so I wanted to walk through why we made the changes and what the changes are. What we had been realizing over the past few years is two things. One was our commencement ceremony traditionally falls on Sunday morning, and we were seeing that there was a de-emphasis on the importance of that commencement ceremony when the students actually graduate, when their degrees are conferred. There are other events over the weekend called recognition ceremonies that are held by each college where the deans make speeches and read each graduate's names. No diplomas are given out, but the families often see that as the culmination of graduation. And so the emphasis, the importance of the ceremony on Sunday was diminished. So we were looking for ways to really bring that and make that the central component to the commencement weekend. The other item was logistically, the commencement schedule had grown to be 3 days for most families and 4 days for some. And it was causing, for many families, a hardship to get here and be at all the events. Often there are multiple commencements in families. There are other events at that busy time of year, and they were finding it very difficult to devote the attention they wanted to our commencement. And so we were looking to condense the schedule, concentrate the events, not necessarily take anything away, but allow for families to really give commencement the time and attention it deserved. And so the big change this year is we've moved the university commencement ceremony to Friday afternoon. This is the event that's held in the stadium. It's where our honorary degrees are conferred, our commencement speaker speaks, and graduates actually get their degrees conferred. That will be followed on Saturday by a series of recognition ceremonies, all taking place on campus in different spots. The undergraduate ceremonies will take place at the same time, and that's where students will pick up their diplomas. And so we feel like we're going to give this a shot and see how it goes this year, but it gives us an opportunity to, again, really put the focus back on that centerpiece ceremony. And to talk a little bit about the logistics around shifting these events, Dave Jajeski, our Director of Public Safety, will fill you in on some of that.
Good evening. Thank you. We have this year, as we have in past years, worked closely with the police department to manage traffic and parking. Through the years, I think we've continued to make improvements to traffic, and working in conjunction with the police. We have added roughly a dozen closed-circuit TV cameras that monitor traffic. Have established a command center that Radnor Police and us jointly staff, and we're able to coordinate our efforts in terms of moving traffic from lot to lot as the lots fill. We have programmable road signs that direct cars once the main lots fill over to the law garage. We've also given employees at the university the half day off that day to get them out at noon to reduce traffic, and we're running 8 shuttles that day as well. So we've worked well. I have to commend Lieutenant Block, Lieutenant Flanagan through the years have worked extremely well with us to make this event a success.
Thank you very much. Does anyone on the board have any questions? Or?
Yeah, I just want to emphasize, thank you for coming in tonight on short notice. We met with staff. I met with staff last week and found out about the change. One of the big concerns we have is you have all the traffic stacking from, say, the Blue Route from 476 up towards Ithan, and only for the cars to find out that the lot is full. Now you're either putting the cars down Ithan and getting them onto Aldwin Lane, or you're putting them on Ithan going towards County Line Road. And the only thing I would ask for is there anything you can do to prevent that stacking from occurring in the first place, meaning diverting the cars before they even get past County Line Road, getting them onto County Line Road, getting them over to the law school that way, just trying to keep those cars out of the neighborhoods, because it isn't. I heard you're assuming 8,000 visitors that day. I don't know if that translates to 4,000 cars or 2,000 cars, but it can be quite a disruption for the area. And the fact that you're having it on Friday at 4 p.m., worried me, because generally I come back that way on Friday and it's usually pretty jammed up as it is without any activity at the campus. So.
Yeah, one of our hopes, and again, we haven't done this yet, so we don't know, is that people will come in throughout the day, since it doesn't start until 4 o'clock, as opposed to a 10 a.m. start on a Sunday. But that being said, we about a year ago, upgraded our digital signage so that it's remotely programmable, and with monitoring as the main lots fill, we're able to change the programming on that sign that's down by the Villanova Post Office, to direct people up up Spring Mill Road to the law school and not even get to that intersection once it starts to fill. We are, and this was a suggestion that was made by the township, going to have the radio station broadcasting that day publicized to people coming in, that they can tune in to the radio station as they arrive for parking information. And we're also going to use social media and use our Twitter our Twitter account to publicize information about lots being closed. So again, it's the ability to centrally monitor and control the signs, and adding these other tools. Our goal, when those lots even start to fill, is to get people directed up County Line Road. We've never run out of parking on commencement. The challenge has always been getting cars to West Campus and the law school. We, again, with the employees, with the employee volunteers, we're telling them to park on West Campus. And with the graduates themselves, we emphasize that we want them to park on West Campus so that their guests can have adequate parking and can get there and get to the event on time and safely.
Just one follow-up to that. Is there a plan to have officers directing traffic at Spring Mill to make sure that, the sign is great, but a lot of drivers will see that and say, I'm going to try to get something closer.
Yeah, it's my understanding, that's people's natural inclination, is to go to the venue and then try to find parking. It's my understanding from talking to Lieutenant Flanagan that they are going to have an officer at Spring Mill and Lancaster. The challenge, though, is that there's other people going east on Lancaster that aren't going to the event, and without having a conversation with every one of them to make sure that they know where they're going, it's hard to direct. You can't direct everybody up Spring Mill Road. So that's why we're trying to get out as much as we do every year, trying to get out as much information beforehand to people about parking as we can. And as I said, use those other means when we do need to switch it over. We can do so remotely. In years past, that's happened roughly a half hour before the event starts, is when those lots fill and we attempt to switch over.
And there was a mention of shuttles. Will that be to take to have a satellite parking lot, or what is the arrangement?
The shuttles will go from Agnes Irwin as well as from West Campus. They'll service the law school events in the morning, and just as needed from the farther out lots.
Okay. There was some talk amongst, and sorry to take up time, but I think this is important. Recognize that Villanova should have their commencement. They should be well attended, but it's nestled in my neighborhood and my constituents and yours, and it has an impact, and we just want to make sure that we can lessen that. There was talk. Staff had brought up the idea of maybe getting a satellite lot, maybe contacting one of the other businesses in the area that has large lots and seeing if there's any way to make an arrangement for satellite parking. Try to get some, instead of having cars head east from 476, have them head west and get into a parking lot somewhere, in St. David's area.
And a shuttle?
And
a shuttle bus?
from there, yeah. So if there's any way to work that out, I know it's short notice. Again, I come home Fridays almost every week that way, and, Lancaster Avenue is pretty much filled up already, so, and it's not your fault. So this would just make matters difficult.
Yeah, the challenge, and I when I read that, I can understand the desire not to want to see cars turn right onto Lancaster Avenue. The challenge with that is that you'd have to then stop people from going into the lots because they would want to go to the lots by their nature. They want to go, and if there's space in the lot, they're going to go to that lot. You'd have to then turn them around and send them back down Lancaster Avenue, check credentials and things like that. I think there'd be a concern with queuing on the street if we were to do that with traffic backing up onto Lancaster Avenue. But that's certainly a good suggestion, one that we'll consider moving forward.
And I want to talk a little bit about the end of the day. So one thing I didn't mention is that since Father Donahue has been president, we've hosted an event on campus on Friday evenings, a reception for graduates and guests, and it's traditionally been very well attended. We're still having that again this year, and the difference being that it's a reception immediately following the commencement ceremony, so it'll be even more well attended. People will stay on campus. It's come and go, so when the event is over, it will not necessarily be a flood of people going back to their cars and back onto the streets. There will be a trickle as the evening goes on. So we think that on the backside, and it's not just getting there, it's leaving, we think that will assist with the traffic flow at the end of the event as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much for coming in and explaining it, and we'll keep our fingers crossed.
Elaine, please. I'd like to thank also the folks, Villanova and President, so thank him on our behalf. And thanks for coming and discussing this. I do feel that the weekend would be probably better as just a traffic matter. So irrespective of how this works out, I understand your point, but I think Sunday morning would be better for traffic. And also, I think it is helpful to get as much media to the folks as possible to have them come in throughout the day, because the people coming in at 4 o'clock and trying to get in the parking lots, you can. It's obviously you're gonna have. I don't want to have a lot of people miss the ceremony because they're in traffic, and that very well could happen.
Yeah. It's funny, as we were preparing for this event tonight, I was talking about to my colleagues about the different notification systems we have, and Twitter was brought up, and I said, well, that's not getting to the parents and the grandparents who are driving, and the person who runs it said, I've actually had more parents and grandparents sign up for Twitter than students. Students get their information from Facebook, so I don't know what that says about our parents and grandparents, but we're going to take full advantage of that, and certainly when the event's over, we'll debrief and include feedback from the township as well, and see what we can do better.
Great. Thank you so much for coming in.
Madam President, if I may, just to let the commissioners know, the police department has been very involved with this. Both lieutenants, Lieutenant Flanagan, Lieutenant Block, have been very involved with this, taking a lot of the considerations and concerns. Those, if you have, please continue to let us know. We'll address those with the university, as well as we plan to utilize the Code Red system, too, to make out phone calls on a regular basis so that residents are aware of what areas to avoid, and we think that system's been beneficial. So any information or feedback that any of the commissioners have, we have the ability to utilize those systems at our call.
More information about commencement is at villanova.edu/commencement, so for anybody that wants to know as well.
Great. Thank you. Thanks again. Okay, next we have some appointments to some boards and commissions, and I believe Commissioner Curley is going to take this.
Yes, I'll move that we appoint to the CARFAC Committee Jeffrey Rubin and Carl Rosenfeld, to the Garrett Hill Implementation Committee that we appoint John Childs, and to the Civil Service Commission that we appoint Wally Stewart.
Second.
Do we have any commissioner comment or debate? Any staff comment or debate? Any public comment? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It passes 7-0. Next, we'd like to make an announcement that there are several openings on our Comprehensive Plan Implementation Committee. Somehow we have managed to have many openings on that happen at once. We didn't have staggered terms for that. So if you are interested in serving on that, that is a group that monitors our comprehensive plan, and in this particular juncture, it's due for being renewed. So I think we're over 10 years, and by state law, we're supposed to renew it every 10 years. So that group will be working on updating our comprehensive plan. If you're interested, please submit your resume to the attention of our manager, Mr. Zinkowski, and we will conduct interviews over the next month or so. Next, we have a few recognitions, and we're going to start with recognizing Herb Hazen, who was the chair of our Board of Health and was on our Board of Health, served for many, many years. And I'm going to ask Commissioner Nagel if you'd like to go ahead and do the presentation. There's a plaque up at the podium.
We have a wonderful plaque for you, Herb, and I'll read it to the people. Radnor Township's award of appreciation is hereby granted to Herb Hazen in recognition of your dedicated service to the township and the community by serving on the Township Board of Health January 2006 through December 2012. How long were you chair? 13.
This is my last day.
Yeah, but how long were you president?
About 6 years.
6 years as president. Please know that the citizens, commissioners, and staff of Radnor Township sincerely appreciate and thank you for your outstanding performance and lasting contribution to help make Radnor Township the best place to live, work, play, and do business on the main line.
Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. Just one trip over the...
I'd like to thank the commissioners, all of you, for this honor, which I have to say I'm accepting on behalf of all of my past and former colleagues on the Radnor Township Board of Health. Whatever I was able to achieve, I achieved because of their support and hard work and the more dedicated group of public servants I have yet to meet. So, thank you.
Thank you, Herb.
Well, I would just like to say thank you. That I think we are all grateful for Herb's service. He really is a great example of a dedicated and gracious public servant, and really donates so much of his considerable expertise for the benefit of all of us. So thank you. Next, we have another recognition that our police officers and public safety is going to present, and that is to the Delaware County Kennel Club.
Yes, Madam President, in addition to the Kennel Club representatives, I'll ask the lieutenants, along with Officers Coco and Lunger, our canine officers, and their newest partners, to also come to the front of the room.
Put them right up there.
We're going to open up initially with Marge Romoldi from the Delaware County Kennel Club. Although she's going to be getting a reward from us for their huge support to our program, Marge actually is upstaging us, and she has a presentation for our canine officers.
First of all, it's my pleasure to be here. And I must say that our two honored guests who are sitting on the floor have been very good through all the meeting, and I'm proud of them. I'm very honored to present to them some citations of merit. And first, I would like to present this certificate of special congressional recognition is presented to Officer Jennifer Coco and K9 Rocky in recognition of outstanding and invaluable service to the community, and it's signed by Congressman Patrick Meehan. Secondly, I have a citation of merit from the Senate of Pennsylvania, a certificate of recognition from State Senator Dalen Leach. He honors Jennifer Coco in recognition of 9 years of service to Radnor Township along with Canine Rocky. So I am very proud to present these to you. And to Rocky. Don't worry, Bear. You're next.
I'm worried.
Oh, I'm not. It is now my special privilege again for an award of a special citation of congressional recognition, which is presented to Officer Dan Lunger and Canine Bear in recognition of outstanding and invaluable service to the community, again signed by Patrick Mann, United States Congressman. I have here from the state of Pennsylvania a certificate of recognition by State Senator Dalen Leach, who honors Officer Dan Lunger in recognition of 8 years of service in Radnor Township, along with Canine Bear. So I congratulate you. I hand you these. And of course, it wouldn't be complete. You know, they've been so good that they're going to have a little doggy treat bag. Each of them has Radnor on it, and it has their name. And I'm just going to put this over here so he doesn't smell it, okay? And Jennifer, this is for Rocky. And the two-legged officers can't have any of the stuff that's in here.
Thank you.
Just to show you how gracious and altruistic Marge and the Delaware Valley Kennel Club have been, they've done so many things that I'm sure you don't even know about. The microchipping event we've had, they sponsored it. They also offered lifetime dog licenses. And the reason they're getting honored tonight is because of these bulletproof vests, oxygen masks, and also first aid kits specifically for the dogs, but yet they're here honoring our officers again. So I just wanted to let you know that, and I'll turn it over to Lieutenant Flanagan.
And just to keep it short, Marge, if you'd come up here. On behalf of the Board of Commissioners, Superintendent Colarulo, our Radnor Canine team, and the entire department that's just stand there, we just want to thank you and the Kennel Club for providing all of these things. Lieutenant Block has a first aid kit, each dog one. Chief has a bulletproof vest that you provided, and believe it or not, they make an oxygen mask for dogs, and this was all by their work. And not only did Marge and her team stop at that, they held the first ever microchip clinic and dog licensing at the Hartford Dog Park, which was just phenomenal. So on behalf of us, our true gratitude to you and the Kennel Club, thank you very much.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Thank you very much. And it seems that Bear would fit right in on this board because he likes to talk. All right, next we have another presentation from, and I believe we have representatives here from the Pennsylvania Recreation and Park Society for an Excellence in Programming Award. So I'm going to go ahead and invite you up. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about the award you're presenting, and then I believe we have some staff members to call up.
Good evening. My name is Carolyn Hannell, and I chair the Recognition and Awards Committee for the Pennsylvania Recreation and Park Society. I have to begin with a brief background. For several years, the Recognition and Awards Committee has discussed the relevancy of our program and its goals. The previous awards program was established decades ago and reflected the state-of-the-art of public parks and recreation systems at that time. Since then, public parks and recreation has evolved and faces challenges that we now see every day. The fight for funding, staffing, maintenance, and other support in competition with many other municipal funding priorities. Park and recreation providers must now be able to show the community the benefits of our work and direct our efforts to reposition public parks and recreation departments to ensure their long-term future viability. Our mission now is to use the awards program as a way to help our parks and recreation systems establish themselves as a distinctive and valuable service in the minds of the public and, more importantly, the elected officials. Our most important goal was to flip the emphasis of the awards program to outcomes and community benefits of public parks and recreation. We developed the POWER principles to focus on outcomes, achievements, and benefits. These principles include positioning parks and recreation as an essential community service, outcomes in which a specific community problem is identified and the solution provided through the parks and recreation. The wow factor, the twist, major achievement, accomplishment, or creativity and innovation. Affecting change by addressing an important issue in parks and recreation, such as environmental stewardship, connecting people to nature, social equity or health, and finally, resourcefulness, by creatively utilizing resources and outreach methods to generate support from a variety of sources, including partnerships in the public, private, and nonprofit sectors, use of private funds, lands, facilities, or expertise, or securing support from policymakers or elected officials. In 2014, 8 departments across the Commonwealth were selected as recipients of the Excellence in Recreation Parks Award, and Radnor was one of them, recognized for the annual Fall Harvest and Great Pumpkin Patch event. In their nomination form, Tammy, Laura, and Megan wrote, "The second annual Fall Harvest and Great Pumpkin Patch event carved its way into memories of the Radnor Township residents, drawing an attendance of over 4,000 people to enjoy a variety of free fall-themed activities in one of our most treasured parks, the Willows. The highlight of the day was our first ever helicopter piñata, which hovered over an open field at the park, spreading candy and trinkets onto the ground for all of the children. The event brought out the best in Radnor Township, as numerous local businesses, community organizations, local students, township staff, and more than 4,000 residents from all over the township gathered in the Willows Park in celebration of autumn. All of this occurred despite 2 untimely obstacles of a closed major roadway to access the park, as well as a compromised bridge inside the park. Members of the community left the event elated and aspiring for an equally astounding event next year. It's my pleasure to present this plaque to the Radnor Township Department of Recreation and Community Program.
I'd like to call up Ms. Tammy Cohen here and Laura Missinelli and Megan Sullivan. Please come on up so we can all give you a big round of applause for your great work.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Okay, next we will move on to a presentation. And this presentation is of the Clem-McCrone Park and Spillway project that is underway. And a very, very thorough presentation was given to the Parks and Rec Board a week or so ago. Tonight we're getting a very brief overview. But if anyone is interested in more detail, I encourage you to watch the replay of the Parks and Rec meeting on YouTube, because it was very detailed and very interesting. Hello.
Good evening. I'll wait for the graphics to come up, and I've gotten my instructions to be brief but thorough. Do I have to bring this up? Sorry. There it is. Here we are. Okay. I'm Martin Kimmel of Kimmel Bogret. It's my pleasure to work with a number of folks in my firm, with the good folks at the Township and in Garrett Hill, to talk about what could be done with Clem-McCrone Park and that Eastern Gateway project, which we really looked at in concert with each other. The short of it is back in January, we visited the site and analyzed existing conditions and met with neighbors and walked the park. Later in January, we went with a community group to understand their concerns and what they wanted to see in the park and to get their input, which was critical to the process, because this, from the start was to be about the neighborhood and not anything that we might have wanted to do. In February, we presented the first design concept to the community group and got their feedback. And then in March, we presented revised concepts and solutions based on their input, and then ultimately the Parks and Rec presentation that you referred to. So the short of that is, in the middle of this slide is Clem-McCrone Park, and if you drive by it, you might not realize that the park is a little bit bigger than meets the eye. And one of our challenges was to take better advantage of, if you follow my cursor, some of the deeper reaches of the park, which have some beautiful wetlands and open space, but because out of Conestoga, the parking and the fields and the existing buildings, it kind of blocks off that, and you don't get as much utilization as you might otherwise get. There were some significant issues with the park right now, which include traffic and access, a lack of an entry because it is so pressed up against a relatively busy road, visibility, which is what I just mentioned moments ago. Related to visibility is some safety concern that because the back of the park is cut off from view, that it's more at risk. I don't think there's been any significant issues there, but it's from time to time a place to go to be not seen. There is runoff and drainage issues across the park, which keep the ground saturated a good bit of the time and make it just less usable. And by helping it to dewater itself, there's real opportunity. There's not great separation between the various uses, from the tot level uses to the other components of the park. That was good. Someone mentioned earlier tonight better than I, the condition of the restrooms could stand improving, as well as their security apparently. Event space is lacking, and then there's the service area access for the park is the same space as what folks using the park would be in, so it causes some damage. So the concept as presented, proposed, and discussed at numerous meetings was to clarify circulation, create a one-way parking lot that would clean up traffic here, push the tot lot away from the parking lot while still keeping it visible, improving the entries to the park here, here, and here, preserve the ball field but help that dewater, create walking trails that would circumnavigate the park and become boardwalks through the wetland area. Some of that was built over the years as projects. And much of what we talked about doing is everything we would do here is make it easy for it to be maintained so that it will stay in great condition for a long time. Chief among them is to create a more thoughtful path through that will allow us to reorient one of the courts and kind of open up to the back of the park and take advantage, all the while still having some opportunity for events and so on. So in my spirit to keep it brief, some of the images that we talked about, including with regard to paths and walkways, possibly a splash park as part of the tot area, kids area, amphitheater, boardwalks, some nice images, and so on. There was talk about integrating the existing memorial in a better fashion. That is simple enough to do, to possibly have a band shell structure, to change the fencing and design around the tennis courts to make them less of an obstruction in their own right. And that was the concept, and I think it received what I would think is a very thorough vetting from the various groups and people that was all very positive about making it better, and so we made subtle changes as we went along to make it better. Ultimately, we estimated the total cost of the park between $1.2 and $1.8 million in total construction, and then we worked with the township staff to make application for a DCNR C2P2 grant, which we put together the application for. I think it's on your agenda in some form tonight, for $500,000, and that grant application was submitted on the 16th. So that's been very positive. The next steps are to further update, in case you have any comments tonight that we can share, and then present the final master plan. And again, this was a master plan for what to do with the park, not a construction plan for what will be actually done in its detail. Questions?
I have one. Did the deadline pass? Are we approving this retroactively under the next resolution?
Madam President, if I may, what it is because the board does not meet prior to the submission, it is allowable to have, as soon as the board meets after that submission, to go ahead and forward this on to them.
Very good. Thank you.
All right. Other questions?
So what would the time, assuming we got money somewhere, either from this grant or from the state, or assuming we have some money to start with, what is the timing of moving from that master plan to a construction plan? And what's that process?
The timing on that would, depending on what piece or pieces or all of it would be done, would have some impact on the timing. But the design process would probably be a 4 to 6 month range, and then the construction process would be anywhere from 6 to 14 months, depending on the scope of what would get done.
And the phasing to which was referred in this, I don't remember where I read it, but or saw it, that there was a phasing concept. Is that financially driven?
Yes.
Okay. So if we did get a big pot of money, either from the state or from DCNR, we could do it all at once.
Yes, no one in the group wanted to presume that it would all be funded at once, and so we were looking realistically at smaller and bigger pieces to scale it to whatever might be available.
Okay. Any other questions?
I don't have any questions. I'll just make a couple comments. First of all, thank you for Martin for coming in tonight to present. This was a really good, clean process. We had a lot of people from the public come out and give opinions about what they want the park to remain or change into. And I just want to emphasize that this park, and everyone would like to claim this, but this park literally has 2,000 residents that can walk there within 5 minutes. So we have very dense neighborhoods surrounding the park. It serves Beaupre, it serves Conestoga Village, Old Oaks, Garrett Hill. So there's a very large constituency that can walk to this park. And quite frankly, we have a large number of families, with young families, that love to come up to this park every day as a ritual to use the tot lots and whatnot. And this plan really helps make the park more usable for those groups. So that's the local users, but then we know township-wide, because the park has very good amenities, it has the basketball courts, the tennis courts, and the baseball diamond. It's regular use with the baseball field. So it's generally it's a park that's used by a lot of constituents in the township, and there aren't many parks big enough to have those amenities. So we're very lucky to have a park that size. That is not necessarily a nature preserve, but it's been improved over the last 50 years. I would be thrilled to see a new bathroom. I mean, literally have residents have helped paint the bathroom. I think I donated a shower curtain one year to give privacy to the women in the bathroom because there are no doors or stalls. Just silly things like that. And I think it's time. You know, the bathroom's probably about 50 years old. It looks awful. And it's time to improve that and then add some new amenities that help the residents enjoy the space. My only comments.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you, John. Anybody else have any comments? All right, well, we really appreciate your coming in and giving the presentation in the short version one more time. And I believe we'll be doing some voting on this in the next section of our agenda.
Okay.
So thanks
And
a lot.
Yes? There's an additional part of the presentation, which is the Eastern Gateway Project,
Okay,
which I was
great.
asked to speak to. It's even shorter, although I lost my connection. I got it back. Well, that was beautiful. So hopefully you're all familiar with where Conestoga goes under the train tracks along the SEPTA line here. And this is largely township property and a combination of property ownership here along that, I guess what is the northern side of the road and the southern side of the tracks there, although it runs at an angle. At any rate, it's an unsightly gateway to the township and not too far away from Clem-McCrone, so we were asked to take a look at what could be done there as well at the same time. Here is a pretty indicative view of what you see. And there's an amalgam of things that go on there, but there's some significant drainage issues that are unresolved, that has water going across the road because it doesn't stay in its drainage swale. Obviously, there's a lot of invasive materials and so on, and it doesn't really present particularly well. So we were asked to take a look at that. We zoom in. We do need to maintain SEPTA access. This is an access point for them to access and maintain the tracks along that area. And we did just that. We met with we made it part of the agenda for the same neighbor group because it's, again, only, I don't know, a quarter of a mile away or so.
Martin, you might want to add that it's also a PICO right away.
Yes, PICO, SEPTA, is that a PennDOT road too? And the township. Yeah, so it's quite the crossroads of activities. And that's probably why it looks the way it does, because everyone claims its ownership when it's convenient and says they don't own it when it's inconvenient to maintain it. So at any rate, so we're really looking at very simply with some smart and very maintenance-free landscaping to create and establish a better swale, and then to create a series of drop pools that would slow the water down and allow it to fall and fall and fall, because it's a very long hill, so it picks up quite a bit of speed. Possibly have up here where my letter A and that red line is, some signage, welcome to signage, and you're sorry you're leaving signage maybe on the other side, to help make it act more like a gateway rather than just be called a gateway. The things that we look at to do that in terms of the signage, or have something, that makes sense to plant the types of grasses and things that need very little maintenance. The steepness of the bank there is such that you want to plant it and kind of let it go. control the invasives which have taken over there, all of which we had the good help of Land Studies, a great natural landscape architect to help us on that. So that's the intent. I could share, we have some images of how these drop pools would work in the dry season, and then tomorrow when the rains come, how that'll change. At any rate, we did have a very good and seemingly productive meeting where we were able to get SEPTA and PICO and the Township and the design team together to talk about how this could actually be accomplished and not be something that would sort of end up just not happening. So we're very optimistic that can be done at really pretty low cost, and there's some grant money and some other things I think may be available to supply funds to that.
Could I ask you, the drop pools, is that what you call them?
Yes.
How do they work? Could you go back to that slide?
Yes, I can. I'll show you right here. So if you imagine a normal swale where you see my cursor runs down through,
Yeah.
in a regular swale of great length, that water picks up speed with gravity over time. And so if you go look out there, you see now there's a tremendous amount of scouring where the dirt's all washed away and there's rocks left and so on. In a drop pool, and really what is the same path, you create a series of small dams which slow the water down, and then it falls or drops into a next pool and then goes a little ways, and it basically decelerates the water so that it can stay in the channel without erosion. And it's really a best practice for.
So you have to dig these depressions out for this to work.
Well, if you look at the grades out there, it would be really more you would be putting dams in what is a really carved out groove now that would allow it to slow down.
And where would you get these boulders?
To be determined. Some of which are
All right.
on site, but some might be imported. Do you have some extras?
Yes, I do have
Do you
some
really?
extras,
Okay.
yes.
I'm sorry, that sounded like a leading question. I liked
Mr.
it.
Curley has some extras.
Okay.
In fact, when a subdivision on Eaton Drive was developed in the late 70s, early 80s, I was on the board, and some of the residents came to me. They had an enormous amount of boulders in that subdivision, and there's still a lot there. And I'm sure those people would love to have a way to get rid of them. What we did back then was we got one of the shore towns, I think it was Sea Isle City, to pay for the cost of transporting these enormous boulders down there, and they use them as groins along the coast. But if we have a closer location in Garrett Hill, it might be a good use for them.
Duly noted. Thank you.
Learn something new every day.
All right, now I'm really done this time.
Okay, thank you.
Just a brief comment on this one. This has been going on through multiple commissioners. It is the Bermuda Triangle of bureaucracy, because you have PICO, SEPTA, and PennDOT all having an impact on what happens at this site. But I just want to remind everyone that 12,800 cars go past this site every day. That was a study that was done 5 years ago. It's probably up around 13.5 now. The point is that it is really an awful eyesore, and we just need to do something. You know, we need to do something that makes it look as beautiful as the neighborhoods that it's across from, because quite frankly, it's turned into more of a hardship over the years. It didn't always look so bad, and it's deteriorated to the point where it's just a pile of weeds and scrub, and it's rocks and debris, and now we have problems with people dumping there because it looks like a dump. So. But we'll take your rocks if you have the rocks. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Madam President, if we may, if it would be okay while Martin's here, there's one item on the agenda. It's under E, under discussion of township property. The Jaquari house that was on there.
Yeah.
That was one because of the condition we had asked Martin to take a look at structurally of the house and the garage that is there. I'm not sure if Martin wants to sit around for 2.5 hours or so, or depending until we get to this. But if the board would be okay just to entertain his observation on that, if that would be okay while he's still here.
Okay, that's fine, but let me just, for everybody else who's listening and you have no idea what we're talking about, there is a house on the property of Harford Park. Harford Park is where Kreuzberg Center is, that beautiful old house, and the dog park for those of you who have dogs. When you first drive into that park, you may not have ever even noticed it because it's behind a berm of trees. There's a house back there and a standalone garage. And well, we're going to hear what kind of shape it's in. From the naked eye, it doesn't look like it's in great shape. But the Historical Society has come take a look at it, and they think it has some historic value, and I've walked through it. It does have some very interesting features, and they've asked us to, consider trying to find a way to preserve it in some way, shape, or form. So you have been called in to look at it structurally and give us your assessment. And that's the background of this. And we're really skipping ahead, so whatever you hear right now, hold on to it, and we'll discuss it later.
Okay. The very short of it from my perspective, and I did tour all floors of the house and took a good look at the outside, is that it would in fact be feasible to preserve. It because of asbestos and asbestos siding and mold and other things that have accumulated in that over time would be expensive to preserve. If you wanted to put it in actual functional use, it has quite a few issues with regards to ADA accessibility and your ability to actually use it for any kind of commercial purpose without substantial renovation or expansion, because it's quite tiny and chopped up into small things with steps and narrow steps and things like that. So I would say of historic things, and I might not be the best judge, but I don't see its character as justifying the investment that it would take unless there was a benefactor available for that purpose. The garage, on the other hand, I took a look at too, and I think it has quite a bit of interest and potential, and I think partly because it was designed kind of more in concert with the main house and is somewhat related in the I assume that was a gatekeeper's house or guest quarters or something, would be worthy, and it's on one level primarily and would be easy and has volume, and I think could find a community use very economically and be exposed a bit as a jewel more easily and with less cost.
Okay, great. Thank you. Much appreciated.
You're welcome.
All right, so we'll get back to that a little later in the agenda. For now, we're going to keep back on the agenda and go to Parks and Recreation Committee report with Commissioner Nagel. And first up is a vote on what we just heard. The Clem McCrone.
We have Resolution 2014-23. It's an authorization for the application to Pennsylvania Department of Conservation Natural Resources C2P grant. And I'd move the approval of this.
Second.
Is there any commissioner comment or debate about it?
I just want to thank staff and Tammy in particular for all their hard work on moving this ahead. And best of luck. Hopefully we'll get the grant money.
And I want to just clarify, this is for the Clem McCrone project, not for the spillway. Okay, is there any other comment? Any staff comment on this?
I just had a question. Do we have designated funding for the Clem McCrone project irrespective of the grant? Or is that to be determined?
We do. It's in our packet. There's money in this year's budget and next year's.
Any other questions or comments? Any staff comment?
Yeah, I had one. So similar to that, would the design come from the capital budget?
I would assume so, because these are all capital improvements.
Right.
Clearly, without the grant money is going to be important
Right.
to move ahead with this.
So Bill White, this is this budgeted then as part of, because the design on this would be, I don't know, $200,000 probably.
Yeah, the dollars allocated in the capital budget could certainly be used for the design aspect on the front end, and there's roughly $175,000 this year. I'm not sure what the grant timelines are, but there are dollars set aside and could be used for the design portion of this, certainly.
Very good, thank you.
Okay, anything else, Don? All right, any staff comment? Any public comment?
Good evening. Hi. My name is Philip R., Meredith Avenue, but I'm here tonight as chair of the Garrett Hill Implementation Committee, and I wanted to advise you that on April 15th, the Garrett Hill Implementation Committee, GHIC, held its quarterly meeting and reviewed the master plans for Clem McCrone Park and the Conestoga Eastern Gateway by Kimmel McGrath Architecture. And the GHIC made the following motion. On behalf of the GHIC, a motion of recommendation was made to express our support and request the Board of Commissioners' support of the master plans for the Clemmer-Crone Park and the Conestoga Eastern Gateway, including full funding of both plans. The motion was passed 5-0 with no abstentions. Accordingly, the Garrett Hill Implementation Committee also supports Radnor's DCNR grant proposal for the Clemmer-Crone Master Plan project. As part of Garrett Hill's 19-month-long master planning process, which resulted in the adoption of this master plan in July of 2008, which this committee steered, and included several visioning workshops, over 250 neighbor participants, identified major priorities for Garrett Hill area, and first among these was improvements for Clemmer-Crone Park. It's not surprising that what you see here from Kimmel-Bourgret matches almost line by line with the priorities that were listed by the Garrett Hill residents at that time in the priority process. They did a super job listening to the community, reaching back with not only recommendations, but also that they had heard what they had said and agreed with the improvements that we wanted. So these improvements being proposed for the park plan are consistent with the earlier recommendations and will ensure sustainable uses and further greening of our park. The rehabilitation to the park and facilities will mean greater access for all and modernized restrooms and amenities that will enhance its usability and benefits for a neighborhood and a township. Since this park is located in Radnor's 7th Ward, the township's most densely populated ward, the creation of trails and stream bank improvements within the park will promote health and recreation benefits and conservation awareness to a wide audience of residents. The improvements to the Conestoga Spillway will provide welcome benefits as an eastern gateway to Garrett Hill and to Radnor. So we thank you for making possible this valuable master planning process that we saw tonight. We thank the township staff and Kimmel-Bourgret for the fabulous work that they did in proposing these plans. And the GHIC will continue to provide its support in the adoption and implementation of the park's master plan and that of the Eastern Gateway, and respectfully request that the board's full support and funding for both these projects. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Philip.
And can I give you these memos here?
Great. Thank you.
I'd also like to mention to the board that the Parks and Rec Board at their meeting voted 6-0 to support this application and moving forward.
Okay, is there any other public comment on this matter? All right, I'm going to go ahead and call the vote. All those in favor of passing the resolution, say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? It passes 7-0.
Next, I'd like to move Resolution 2014-29, authorizing the purchase of playground equipment and surfacing for the Enke Park Playground Replacement Project.
Second.
Thank you. Bob, do we need a briefing on this, or do you think everybody's sufficiently up to date on it?
Sure, I can provide a little bit of background on that. Just wanted to give a little bit of history. Back in the spring of last year at this time, Radnor Wayne Little League had approached the township and met with myself, Steve Norsini, and the township manager to talk about the area that at the time had served as their batting cages areas in between Enke A and Enke B, right out here off of the township building at the complex. And there had been a lot of significant issues with water runoff, which I think is just, it's within the natural stormwater area, within the park area of where the batting cages were located. And they made a request to us to actually relocate the batting cages to where they sit right now as you see them today. At the time, there was a playground right there, which was our playground that had previously been relocated from where the skate park was from back in 2004. And we worked with them so that they could go through that process. And of course, that would allow the area where the batting cages were to do what they're supposed to do, is to keep the natural water back into that area and off of the left field area of Enke B, which was where it was starting to collect and pocket. So with working with the Little League Association, we obviously took the playground area and took that down. A lot of those components and parts and pieces were becoming out of date, and in not wanting to go ahead and relocate the playground right away, just given we wanted to upgrade the playground into compliance with some updated safety standards, and in moving the playground we would have to do that. We allowed them to go ahead and put the batting cages into that area, and then took a closer look at the site, of course. And of course, with the help of a resident that's here with us tonight, Heather Gill, we took a look at the site and looked around for a good location. And as you would see within your packets, there is a diagram that had been provided and a site plan that's part of that basically takes the new playground, which is approximately 79 feet by 49 feet within there, and moves that right off of where the batting cages sit today. So what you have in front of you is 2 resolutions as part of that to basically purchase the playground equipment and the surfacing to comprise the new playground. That would be a CoStar state contracting bid purchase that would be made. And then, of course, the installation, which would be a separate contract that would come from a company with the playground pros who would actually install that. So these are actually items that have been part of the capital plan and were budgeted, so that was part of the plan that you had approved for this year. The equipment and the surfacing basically would include all of the equipment, the trash receptacles, the benches, the picnic table, and everything that would go within there, along with the poured-in-place surface that we're proposing to be put in place as part of the surfacing that would replace the wood chips that's currently used in many of our park areas. So the equipment and surfacing as part of the resolution with 2014-29 would be in the amount of $96,990. As I had mentioned, it would be a Pennsylvania state purchasing contract through a company called Elaine and Associates, which is someone that a group that the township has worked with on prior projects in many other locations throughout the township. So we would request your authorization to make that purchase. I do want to also let you know that we have met with Radnor Wayne Little League. They agree with the location, like the location. We've also met with the Parks and Recreation Board. We did that in February, and they took a look at the location. They were in accord with the location. So we would like to respectfully request your authorization to move forward with that purchase. And then, of course, subsequent to that would be the installation, which would be per the next resolution, 2014-36, which would come directly after this one.
So the sum of those 2 resolutions is they're both together within the budget from 2014.
They are.
What we budgeted.
The equipment and the surfacing I had mentioned would be $96,990, which is outlined right within the resolution. The installation cost would be $24,642, which is in the subsequent resolution that you see there, totaling $121,632.
Great.
Tammy, can you remind me why there are no competitive bids through CoStars? I know we've been told this before by Mr. Norsini, but for my benefit, maybe other commissioners in the audience, why?
I'm going to have to defer to Steve on that.
They bid it out and get the lowest bid, and then we can go on that. They're the ones that bid it out. The state bids it out,
Okay.
and then we are able to use that under the law. We don't have to bid because they've already bid it. If we want
They
to.
didn't,
It's actually, if I may, Commissioner, this is what Commissioner Spindler spoke about. The state actually puts these out to bid, and they create a master list based on bidding statewide instead of just here in a local municipality. They do that for not only this equipment, but police vehicles and that, vehicles for public works, a number of items that are available on this list that are already publicly bid on the benefit of the volume bid. And that's, there's such
broad
an advantage to that.
competition.
Correct.
Okay. And also, did I understand you say that, Tammy, that we're going from the wood chip surface to an artificial surface?
Yes, it would be it's a granular black rubber surface that would actually be poured into the place, and it would be porous, so it would allow for the natural water flow to go through it.
And why? What's the reason for that?
I think just in trying to get away from some of the wood chips that we have a lot throughout our parks currently, which I think all of them do currently, I think, I don't want to speak on behalf of Steve, but I think there's a lot of maintenance that goes along with that. There's a lot of recovery throughout the year in replenishing those areas. And this, I think, it offers the opportunity to take away some of that maintenance time.
Okay. Do these artificial surfaces stay clean? I mean, we have children falling and scraping knees and things. Over the years, are they going to be harboring germs and...
Commissioner, if I may, so the wood chips Mrs. Cohen spoke of, they're really not the wood chips that we have from all the grinding and chipping we do. It's called wood carpet. It's a very specific product that's tested for fall attenuation. It's rather expensive, and we buy it at the beginning of every year, and we go through all our parks
and then we continue to upgrade our parks to, as Tammy noted, fill in where needed as time goes on. The beauty of the surface is that I think aesthetically it's more pleasing, but it too has been tested for fall attenuation and really doesn't involve a lot of maintenance as far as, I mean, there's no replenishing whatsoever. It's used throughout the country. I've never heard any complaints regarding dirt and cleanliness on them. And obviously, Public Works will do whatever cleaning is necessary from using the blower to a hose, whatever we need to do.
When you say fall attenuation, do you mean you're less inclined to trip and stumble?
No, they actually test it with like a certain weight sphere that they drop, and there's a certain amount of reaction that has to occur. So these products are tested. The wood carpet is tested, as is the solid surface. But the solid surface offers a lot of benefits in that it doesn't move. Kids can't kick it away like they do under the swing sets and the sliding boards. And it's in my opinion, my humble opinion, it's a much safer product to use for that playground for the long term.
Any other questions from the commissioners?
One question. So, Steve, you would say that use the wood chips rather than the rubber surface?
No, I would recommend that we use the surface that Mrs. Cohen is putting forth. I think it's a better product, aesthetically, safety, future maintenance.
Any other questions?
Madam President, if I may, briefly. The budget this year for this project was $230,000. It is coming in at approximately 121, I believe, and some change. And I want to recognize Tammy and Heather for their hard work on this, really. And Heather being an engineer and volunteered her time, which is hours in time, that helped us with this to put this in here. One of the recommendations I will make, though, is we talked about Clem-McCrone. Parks Board has spoken about these monies to keep within the parks and continue on that process. So this may be one of the difference here that we would look to, again, move towards Clem-McCrone to help with that particular project.
Okay, thank you, Bob. I didn't see any fencing. There's no fencing around it?
There will be. Those will be additional costs, as well as some of the additional work within regards to fencing we were looking at along Enke Park, right along the roadway at Ivan Avenue, plus the installation of a handicap parking spot, approximately a 10 by 12 or 10 by 20 spot, I believe, would be right in there. And then there's a pathway that would actually take you back along right along where the creek is, that will come into the back side of the park opposite of where Ivan Avenue is, approximately a 5-foot pathway that would go back through there. That would be additional cost as well.
So it sounds like we might find a way to spend all that money.
I don't think we'll spend all of it, but we're definitely going to spend more than the $121,000.
Right, okay, great, thank you, I appreciate it. Any other staff comment? Any public comment? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and call the vote. This is on the first resolution, which was moved and seconded for the equipment and surfacing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? This passes 7-0. The next resolution, does somebody want to move in second?
Well, since it's Parks and Rec, I'll move it.
I'll second it.
Is there any further comment on that? This is the resolution just paying for the installation. Any staff comment? Any public comment? Hi, Jim.
Jim Schneller. I use the park frequently. Is this supposed to be on the Ivan Avenue side of the park? Where traffic is nearby? Wouldn't you need stanchions?
Closer to the creek.
Oh, thank you.
Any other public comment? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 7-0.
Madam President, if it'd be okay, just Heather maybe to stand up for just a moment. She did a lot of work. She's here. And
Did a lot of work and saved us a lot of money, so thank you very much.
Next, move Resolution 2014-47. This is to request possible funding from the state capital budget in the amount of $500,000 for the Clem-McCrone Park Improvement Project.
Second.
Can we have an explanation of this from Bob?
Sure, Tammy, if you
From Tammy?
Okay. What this is State capital budget, typically there are applications. I know the township has made application in the past in which we have not been funded. This project, based on its participation with the community and their community involvement, based on what is a bondable project, which this would be, fits the criteria very well. There were a number of letters that were collected in support of the DCNR grant. We would utilize those same letters of support, which again continue to fall in the criteria for possible state capital budget funding. What it helps here is with a board resolution saying that the Board of Commissioners are supportive of this, and that we do have funds right now for the restroom. We know next year's capital budget has money. It's one of the items I believe, Tammy, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the Parks Board made a motion in support of this too as well. To support this application at the state capital budget.
Parks Board did, it was a 6-0 vote. It was done kind of wrapped up with the other ones. Right.
They did, and there is a copy of the memo that I provided to the board on that as well.
So this is more a general request from state capital funds as opposed to a specific DCNR program?
That is correct.
Yeah, okay.
This is determined by I believe, the governor and several others. I believe there's a representative within our area that represents, has input on this, so it'd be very helpful to try to.
Yes, and that representative has been very helpful to us in the past
That's
with
correct.
park funding, so.
That's correct.
Great, I think that'd be wonderful. Any other questions or comments from the commissioners? Any other staff comments? Any public comment? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It passes 7-0.
Commissioner, if I may, one more time, sorry. I do want to recognize and commend the Parks Board being very involved with this. I know that they had attended a number of the meetings, been very involved and very active in making a lot of these recommendations, asking some good questions. So the boards that you have set up that look to advise the commissioners here, they've done a very nice job on these projects.
It's true. What we get in front of us is often, as in today, in a very neat little package, and it's all very worked out, and the details have all been smoothed, and that's because of our Parks Board and our staff. Okay, next we'll move on to Personnel and Administration with Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you. First up, we have an opportunity to review and discuss township-owned property. As you recall, last year, February 2013, we received a Phase 3 report from Crescent Partners concerning township-owned property, and we have that report with us again tonight in our packet. And I guess the point of this is just to discuss opportunities that we have, that we each see in those properties.
So there are 6 properties listed on this agenda. And there's no real magic into the 6 that are listed here. They're really just the 6 that have gotten, the least little bit of traction in the last year of people talking and thinking and really trying to figure out whether we could do anything with these properties. But you'll note that the very last one is any property that one of the board members would like to discuss. So if there's another property that was in the Cressa report that is not on this list of 6, by all means, let's talk about that tonight as well. So perhaps we'll just take these in order, unless somebody has a better suggestion.
Go ahead.
And the first one is the...
Commissioner, if you
Yes.
wouldn't mind, maybe just a couple of things. This goes back to when the Board of Commissioners I'm going to say almost 4 years ago, a little over 4 years ago, when the board engaged CBFAC, the first group. One of the items was looking at the real estate the township owned, to monetize that, and to get the report, actual analysis done so we know exactly what Radnor Township owns. The board had retained the services of Cressa Partners, who are Greg Fisher's here in the audience with us. They did the report and actually put this all together for us. The current CARFAC group, I know they've had discussions in regards to this, looking at the real estate. So again, this is a continuation of a process that the board had initiated almost 4 years ago, as we're moving forward now to where we are at a point here to begin some discussion on these particular properties.
Thank you, Bob.
So can I just ask one or two questions in general? During the analysis of the properties, there were several deed questions that were brought up, questions about whether things were recorded properly at the county level. And there seemed to be some disagreement in this report. You'll find disagreement between what we think has happened and transpired and what, for instance, the school district believes has transpired. And I guess my question is, have we moved at all on reconciling any of these outstanding items? And if not, do we want to do that, set a goal to do that?
Yeah, I agree with you, Commissioner. I think that would be one of the items we'd want to do is reconcile, because I agree with you. There are some that there are questions in regards to. I know Cressa did a lot of work to try to resolve some of those, but I believe those conversations have to be had with those different entities. I know with some of these too is John Rice is going to have to look at, because of how property was retained. There were some questions in regards to what was believed to have been bought under certain grant funding, which appears that it wasn't. So I think there's a lot of reconciliation that has to take place on those two as well. Again, there will be some added expense, I don't think very much, but to be able to reconcile some of those, and then to have the solicitor to be able to research again what properties are actually will be restricted and how that has to be handled.
So I think this board, it would be, just to get this off the table, it'd be in the board's best interest to charge John Rice to make sure that any deeds that haven't been filed properly with the county, and I don't know how many there are, if there's any. I think there's at least one or two that I read that seem to be in question.
Yeah, there's some, what the county records show, what our records show, there's some deeds that don't appear to be correct in terms of the amount of acreage. I don't think any of those properties, though, are the ones that have been discussed for disposition. I mean,
No, I realize that.
the
I'm just-
further, I mean, that needs to be cleaned up, John.
Yeah,
and
it's been a while,
Right.
and I think, especially when it has to do with the school district, that they're showing different records than we are, and I just want to. I would like us. It just seems to me that that's a perfunctory thing that the solicitor should be working on in his spare time, and But do I have a consensus of the board? that we
I
just
recall
wanna
that
resolve?
we did that
right.
charge a couple of years ago.
And I'm not so sure.
And there's been some work on that.
Yeah, okay. And so maybe, if I may, unless the board disagrees, John, would you please at least maybe give us an update on that, and then maybe we can set a reasonable timeline of when to get these things done. I don't think they're high priority. Some of these have been sitting there for 30 years, but let's move it along and get it done so we can move on. Thanks. That's my only comment right now.
Okay, so let's start off with a discussion of the township building. We, as many of you know, we currently lease some of the space upstairs, not all of it, but some of it, and we have some income coming in there. Maybe staff could remind everyone, sort of the predicament of if we decided not to use this building and to dispose of it, why that might not be, that might not really work out for us. And what I'm getting at is that we owe so much money on this building that we would lose money on the situation. So, Bill White, do you mind just taking that for a spin?
Yeah, well, without getting into a whole lot of detail on how much we might be able to lease this building for, we know that the bonds that were issued are roughly around $17 million for the building. So when you have those bonds at $17 million in principal plus the interest, I think the general consensus is that it's going to be difficult to recover all of that. So I don't have to go into the analysis and the decision-making process. The only other item that we'll have to get some legal advice and guidance on is those bonds were also tax-exempt bonds. So making sure that we're doing everything we need to do on our continuing disclosure on the bonds and compliance with the IRS and the tax-exempt status of those, making sure that we're clear on that as well. So from my perspective, those are the two bigger hurdles.
So with that in mind, we did end up in the position, and I think we're still in the position, that leasing to as much space as we could was the better aim to kind of cover some of our losses here. We're doing that to an extent. We did have a conversation with the senior center at some point, which I did not come to fruition. Could we and are we still looking to, if we could find a nonprofit tenant to take the whole second floor, is that still something we would want?
Yes, we are currently looking at that. Just as some history too, the township uses about 1/3 of this building. So really 2/3 we really don't utilize. That's why we are looking at using some of the space. that we have. I know in speaking to some with Cressa and also some other real estate folks, you know, I think what Bill had spoken about, it may be difficult to get to that number, but for my opinion, for us to be able to keep a building like this and only utilize a portion of it doesn't make much good business sense for us. And I don't see us ever to be to a point where we're going to expand staff. I would look at it, the future wave will be contraction, so we will get smaller. I would look at and recommend that if we were the opportunity came where we were able to sell this building, that we would go into a lease type space we have a number of office buildings that sit within this township here that we would be able to lease space. Again, you have a building here that has there were no maintenance bonds on these buildings. The building is in good shape now, but it's going to start taking more money to maintain it. For when you're using only a third of it, I'm not sure that's a good business model for us to have. So there are opportunities for us to go. While this building was being built, the township staff moved into another property in which they leased space. And to my understanding, the staff was a little tighter, but everybody, from what I understand, it was not a problem in the space that they were at. So I think that would be something the township would look at. But this building, I think, out of this entire list, administratively, would be the number one on the list that we would look to try to move.
A separate issue, if we were to sell this building, since this building was certainly not built in accordance with any of our codes, first thing we'd be doing is building a large parking lot.
Right.
So that's an additional expense that we'd have to undertake. And I think it's important to understand that. Even if we lease more space, we need additional parking. So there's some issues there. The space the township moved into when this was under construction was far from ideal, and I think the reason the staff was happy with it is they knew they weren't going to be there forever. Because it was sort of jam us into a space, but we didn't spend any money on retrofits. If we were going to lease space, we obviously would do it properly, so it was designed for our needs. And Susan, I'd love to get the seniors over here. It's a shame we couldn't made that work, but maybe we still can.
Okay, so how about other commissioners? Anybody want to weigh in on this?
You kind of want to do it building by building, is that the idea?
Well, I think we should take these six,
Okay.
unless you.
So my thoughts on the township building, it's a bit of a mismatch. The township building should be downtown. That's what downtowns are in boroughs. That's what downtowns are in small downtowns. It's unfortunate that we put our public works department downtown, and then we put the entity that should be downtown in a relatively remote area. So that kind of mismatch, perhaps utilizing the library property would make sense, meaning that the library goes on one floor, the township on another. So how we do that, we'd have to turn to the experts to guide us, but that's the direction I'd like to see us go. I am very much intrigued by Bob's idea about renting. So if you recall, probably 2 years ago, we had the nonprofits in for a night, 3 hours of listening to the nonprofits talk about what they need from us, and every one of them talked about their building. The roof and the AC was the perennial thing that they came to us and talked about. So my takeaway from that was, if I'm running a nonprofit, I'm not going to own a building because it sort of cuts into what you're trying to do. And I see us very similar. I see us as, when we own a building, we shift energy to the building when we should be concentrating on other things. So I'm very open to that idea of renting rather than owning. And similarly, we don't save. If you own a building, you save it because you own it and it's an investment. We don't do that as a government. We meet the immediate needs, and then the compounding effect of not saving hits us all at one time. So by renting, we are essentially forced to save as we go because the costs of the capital upgrades are embedded in our rent. So for those reasons, I'm open to the idea. I don't know the technicality of whether it's possible or how difficult, but if this building could be sold and we could move to the downtown and become renters, that's something, or elsewhere in the township, that's something that I would be open to.
Okay. Anybody else want to weigh in?
My comment on this is I agree with everything that's been said. I think we need to enlist the work of professional real estate people to find its tenants. So, I mean, staff has done a great job at finding the tenants we have, but if we really do want to try to utilize the space, and there are a lot of restrictions on who we can rent to, we need to probably do a national search. Maybe we could find some national foundation that would want to make this their home. So I don't know if the board agrees with that, but you know, if you own commercial real estate, you have to have an agent to rent it. It's very difficult to rent it on your own.
Well, sale or rent. I mean,
Yeah,
either
to
one.
sell or rent with any consistency. So, and again, that becomes, if we don't hire a professional, then that's another distraction for staff to worry about who we're going to show the building to and that sort of thing. So I think the board should authorize staff to engage a professional to do a national search for a tenant. And we do have to look at the parking. John hit the nail on the head. The building was built, I think, with 50 parking spaces. Under the code, it requires 200. So we're shy 150 spaces right now. I think this board did vote to authorize the construction of some new parking spaces, but we're still way under parked. So we have to figure out where that parking can go. And you know, even for a meeting like tonight, I saw everyone scrambling. A lot of cars, including my own, is parked in the no parking zone tonight because I couldn't find a place to park. So, you know, what kind of a public meeting hall is this if we don't have the space? So I think we can do both. We can rent, use that money to cover the costs. We're never going to make money, but what we're going to do is defer the, cover the maintenance costs of the building, and that's very important.
Well, we could even explore the idea of making this a cost center. And then that way it would get the proper maintenance that we typically don't do on our buildings. I mean, it's been evidenced by the Willows and Kreuzberg, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So while it certainly would probably be more advantageous just to leave, that's an angle we can explore also if we're going to talk about leasing or renting.
Okay, good.
Well, we have a history of selling buildings. We sold the Rosemont Elementary School, and we sold Roland, and then we needed a new building. And so we went out and built another one. And if we sell this building 10, 15, 20 years from now, we'll be building another building. And what do you do with the police department? You know, no one is going to want them in their neighborhood with the cars coming and going. They've been here, they're accepted here. They don't like cars, you know, having to speed up Ivan Avenue or Brookside, but it's here. But I think that we should maintain this building, and the parcels of property we're not using, the space we're not using, we can rent it out. But the thing is that, and at lease prices continue to go up. You know, they don't go down, and the cost of leasing. And, you know, Bob Zinkowski is a bare budget guy, and he's going to get the staff down. But that doesn't mean 10 or 15 years things aren't going to change what the township does, and you need more space. When we had the old building, it didn't fit our needs. In the end of 89, we spent $1.5 million, $2 million trying to make the building work, but the air conditioner never worked, the heater never worked, the building wasn't built properly. So we built this building not for this year or next year, but for the next 50, 75, 100 years for the township. And I think it served the township well. We hit some hard economic times. We've cut back. We're doing things more efficiently. Because of pensions and other things, we want to hire less employees, but that could all change, just like Roland Elementary and the Rosemont Elementary School that the school district didn't need, and they sold it and spent that money, and boom, then they need a building again. So I think we have to continue to maintain this building, have our staff here, and then rent out any space that we're not using now, because in the future we might have to utilize it. But to sell this building in a residential neighborhood and try and turn it over to a commercial thing, and, you know, I'd love to be downtown. I love everything to be downtown. It strengthens the business district. But where do you put your police department with all the cars and the employees? That's one department that you're not going to cut back. We're going to continue to have a good public safety presence here in the township.
Thanks, Bill. Anyone else? Rich, do you have anything to add?
I would say that leasing property, there may be some restrictions because the bonds were tax-exempt bonds. We have some restrictions on who we can lease to, but just because it's hard to find leasees doesn't mean it's impossible. So let's continue to look at that. Also, to explore the other avenues of other potential uses for other township organizations. I am hesitant for a disposition of this particular building because of so many unforeseens and because it's already here. You can say it was a bad idea to build it. Probably was, but it's here now. So I'm very concerned about selling this building. And I think there's many other parcels we should look at before we talk about selling this particular building. Just my view.
So I think I hear consensus on at least the leasing part, and at least the part we're not using. And I for one, really support John Fisher's notion of, taking that pretty seriously and hiring a agent to help us do that. So does everyone agree there's some consensus with that? Just the leasing of the space we're not using?
Yes, I do. I'm not sure that the committee of the whole is the way we should be addressing this. It seems to me that there are so many issues here. Do we move out? Do we try to find a site downtown where we can accommodate everything? Do we really find a tenant to come in here and part of the building or the whole building? All these issues, I think, are better done or analyzed through subcommittees of the board, working with the township manager and his people. If we don't want to do that, then my feeling is, I think, Don, as much as that's an appealing idea of moving down to the center of Wayne, it's just impractical. I can't see it happening. The library property is nowhere big enough to accommodate us and them. The police cars coming and going is a major problem. So I think we're stuck here. And I think if we are stuck here, then we should try to find a tenant to come in to help us with our overhead, our maintenance costs, and our debt service.
Did you have something further, Don? No. Okay, so I think we've found a consensus on that one. This next one should be a pretty short discussion, which is the Public Works building. I sense from past discussions that we all would love to see Public Works outside, not in the middle of Wayne, but that where else do you put it? And that no one has been able to answer that question.
I think Tredyffrin would be a great location.
Tredyffrin, Haverford, Marple. Yeah. Where else in Radnor do you put a Public Works? And
could we put it here? Like, could we move these locations downtown, then take the Public Works location and put it here?
Yeah. The problem with putting a Public Works location in a residential district is the trucks coming down Brookside and Ivan Avenue all the time. At least they're on Lancaster Pike or Mayver Thoroughfare. No one in Radnor Township in a residential area is going to want those trucks coming out at 7 o'clock in the morning. 6:30, going back at noontime, coming back out, and then going back again. That's the problem with a Public Works operation, that you cannot put that in a residential community.
Yeah,
so
the only place we've ever talked about, and it's really impractical because of access, is Chew and Young. But the access there is terrible.
Right, there's an access issue.
Okay, so you may all be right. And the concern I have, though, is that this is supposed to sort of be like or as I would want it to be, and maybe I'm speaking to Jim's point, that this isn't the venue to do this. But we're hashing out details when we should be, somebody needs to express vision. And so if the vision is have the downtown functions downtown and have the commercial functions not downtown, then somebody else needs to tell us about those details. So I'm not sure that this is maybe I'm piggybacking on Jim's point, that a better format might do this, and it might allow us to look at things with vision differently than we are here as sort of 7 practical people.
Yeah, I agree with Donna and Jim. I think the idea tonight is to get some of these ideas out in front of the public, because they haven't really heard before that we're talking about this, and do it more on a high level.
Right. So that's why I'm going to say those ideas, even though I recognize that they have impracticalities.
Right. It's also, to have this discussion like this very broadly in public, anyone who's in this audience, anyone who's listening to this, it gets people thinking. These are some ideas. These are, nobody wants public works there. Where could we put it?
Right. So I guess I just don't want this to, I don't want this to be, I don't want outcome from this. I want
Right.
a process more like what Jim
Right.
identified
I think
for
that
us to identify
I agree with
outcomes.
that too.
When you say nobody wants public works, are you talking about the community?
Yeah, I think most people would rather not have, and maybe I'm wrong, but having it in the middle of our downtown village of Wayne, having a public works facility is inconvenient, with the trucks coming in and out, in between our businesses, and coming in and off our very busy and congested 30 all day long, we could improve on that if we had somewhere else to put it.
Madam President, if I may.
Yeah.
I think what, Commissioners, the discussion you've had, as part of this, what I'd like to recommend is, part of the conversation we had with Cressa was, again, a higher level, kind of what could we do? I think the opportunity to bring in a real estate firm, someone that's a professional, to be able to look at, if the board says these properties are fine to look at, to let someone independently come here who knows the market, who knows what's available, to be able to give a recommendation to the board to say, here's what you could do. Here are the concerns, where do you put public works, the police department, the township, someone is independent, that's professional in the real estate industry, to be able to make a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners to say, here's the properties you have, here's our recommendation, here's what you could do. And then go from there and allow the board to continue that discussion. Start at the higher level and then move into the details.
Yeah, except that, as I see that, Bob, that process, that highest level has to start here. And that's what I think we have to do is communicate a vision to that professional. And it might be, I'm only using my example because that's one that I'm comfortable with now. The vision is that the public works is not downtown and the township is downtown, and then they go off and do that. I think what we did before is they came back with specific recommendations that wouldn't have traction on the board. So I think we need higher level vision from the board and then pass it off to the professionals.
All right, so let's move on and get through the last four briefly and at a high level. The next one is the North Wayne parking spots. That actually, in the Cressa report, that includes the senior center building. It's about almost an acre. It's 40 parking spots and the senior center building. The issues that were identified in the Cressa report and that we've heard for years is that the senior center is aging gracefully, let's put it that way. And it's requiring a lot of money. It's starting to lose some of its functionality. It's not an optimal place for the senior center. And the thought is, are there ideas out there that we could improve that area, those 40 spots and the senior center building? Perhaps, we could consider selling it, we could consider leasing it, we could consider partnering and continuing having another building there, or having that building as the senior center, but adding on to it. What are some of our high-level thoughts about what we'd like to see in that area? Or if we want to see anything. With the issue in front of us that it's not optimal right now. It's costing a lot of money, and the use isn't great.
So my sense is that the senior center has to go where the senior center fits best with our support. So that's going to be largely defined by the senior center, and I think you're going to find the board supportive of your decision, or helpful in that decision. And then that property becomes a downtown property that we use for traditional contemporary downtown uses, which today is largely a mixture of residential and light commercial. So that's the way I see that scenario unfolding in a productive way.
We had two proposals over the last 15 years to do something there, to have someone come in. I think Duckworth had a proposal, put a parking garage there and then support that with either stores or condos. And then Keating came in with a proposal to also take that and increase the parking by putting underground parking, a parking garage, and support that construction with condos or offices. And I think that's what we should look at, is how can we utilize this to maybe get a new senior center to put 2 or 3 levels underground parking there, and then to support the construction of that by stores or condos or some commercial use of that property.
One of the things, I don't know if you all remember, but after the fiasco of when Keating came in about the post office, George Strimmel and a couple other folks got together and came up with a concept that would house the library, the township, and the senior center all together in the same area that Keating had been talking about. Walkable, accessible, additional parking there, which would then free up the current site where the senior center is, which is where most of the commercial properties are on the north side of 30, and it would fit in with that. And we are striving for a more dynamic downtown, and that means residential too. That's what makes downtowns dynamic, is the combination of residential and commercial. So I think we even sent an application into the feds, didn't we, Bob?
We did.
Yeah. So it might be something we want to explore again in concert with the discussion about the senior center and the parking area up there.
Well, down the post office area. Anybody else want to weigh in on this? Well, I certainly agree. I think it would be interesting to hear some ideas about that area. I would love to see our senior center building improved. So how we go about that, again, I'm a big supporter of the public-private partnerships. So, maybe we explore.
Bob, what was the problem with the Wayne Senior Center moving in here as a tenant to take some of the space off of our hands?
Cost for reconstruction here, and I think also just the ability of the change from downtown area and how well it operates within that area. Basically, the two particular items.
Yeah. Jim, when we were talking about keeping the middle school in Wayne, I went to a planning meeting all day. And at the end of that planning meeting, the planner said, you might not remember anything that I said today, but just remember this. Don't let them move your post office. Don't let them move your library. Don't let them move your firehouse. Don't let them move your senior center, because they did that over the last 50 years. They put them in cornfields all over the United States. And the downtowns are deteriorating. Now they're trying to get them back. So, it would have been nice to have the senior center here, but it's better in downtown Wayne. The more we can surround downtown Wayne with, the stronger that is Wayne Business District is going to be, and the stronger Radnor Township is going to be.
Okay. Anyone else want to comment on that? The Bryn Mawr Avenue lot, John, do you want to explain what that is and where we are with it?
If you go up Bryn Mawr Avenue towards Lower Marion and the Wawa's on your right, on the left is a very small parking lot with 5-6 spaces. More than anything, it's a pain in the staff's butt. Steve's guys, they can't get in there to plow decently. They end up doing a lot of handwork. The amount of income, I've had the police run the numbers, the amount of income we get from those meters is trivial. And as you all may know, the hospital owns 4 buildings in that same corner, and they have put those up for sale. And to me, it seems to be a natural to let that go as part of the redevelopment of that area.
What was the valuation in the Cressa report for that? Do you remember?
Oh, it was trivial.
Trivial?
$164,250.
Okay.
I mean, we obviously, with any of these properties we decide to sell, there's a process we have to follow, and
Right.
including competitive bidding. It's just that this isn't doing it isn't benefiting the township.
Well, who would buy it? What use could be made of that parcel?
It could be added land for the redevelopment of that whole area right there.
Which are all on the market.
Right.
Yeah, and the fact of the matter is that we really have no use for this. We have to maintain it.
Right.
But this is an easy one.
That's an
And-
easy one.
Sell it.
Right about now, it's getting ready for repaving.
Yeah.
So it's something that we can benefit. I'd like to add one to the list that fits with this, is up Glenbrook Avenue from there is a parking lot, fairly good-sized parking lot. However, when you drive by that parking lot, and I haven't had the police run these numbers, but I will, very low utilization. that I think there may be some potentialities there, although there I would recommend lease rather than sale, only because, like Bill was just saying, 20, 30 years from now, you may have a need for that land.
Is that in the Cressa report, that piece?
I don't remember.
I don't remember seeing it, yeah.
It's possible.
Is that
we
the
missed it.
parcel we had to spend some money on about a year
Yeah,
ago?
we had the cave-in, and actually SEPTA rebuilt the wall and did most of the work and did a beautiful job.
Okay.
How big is that? How big is that?
Quarter acre, Steve?
Roughly in there.
Yeah, quarter.
So when you say lease, like who would lease that? You couldn't build something on it? So you
SEPTA
lease it
for
to
one.
SEPTA?
Yeah,
Okay.
there are people out there be interested.
Okay.
The issue, though, that we would have to be very careful of there, Glenbrook is a very dense street, and right across the street from that parking lot are townhomes. That area is one of those that was rezoned. It's now commercial, so we have tremendous number of non-conforming uses there. And those people need a place to park their car. There's on-street parking. So I would like, whatever we do, I want to be sensitive to that issue.
Okay. Well, those two sound like the lowest hanging fruit. Unfortunately, they're not very big money items. But the next one on the list was we have about an acre that we purchased on 320 in Conestoga. It's like a triangle shape on the other side across the street from where the Blue Route goes over.
It's on the corner of Sproul Road and South Spring Mill.
320 and that's about an acre.
I get beat up all the time on a few of my open space purchases. This is one of them. We paid $70,000 for this property. And the issue is, do we have to build on every inch of Radnor? This is a corner property. The maintenance is just cutting the grass outside. The rest is trees. But do we want a house there? Do we want somebody to, on this acre, a lot of it taken up by the road on Conestoga and Sproul and South Spring Mill, but do we want somebody to come build a house in there? And we could sell it maybe for 100 and some thousand, let somebody build a house. But do we have to build on every inch of Radnor? Can we leave?
What's the zoning in that?
It's residential.
I think it's R1. It's probably
But
R1.
is this used now for stormwater management? This is a natural basin. Oh,
This is on the corner of Sproul Road and Conestoga Road and South Spring Mill.
down there.
But, well, let me correct you. It's not formally used for
Sproul Road
stormwater
line?
management, but it is an acre and it is
Doesn't have a number, does it?
95% wooded.
It's right after the,
So it is 95% trees and it drains into the Icon
It's
Creek.
right after the Bryn Mawr
So
parking lot.
no, there's no basin there. But if you clear cut that 95% trees, now you've
Now you
got
have a stormwater
flood.
issue.
Now you've got a stormwater issue
Right.
going right into the Icon Creek. So
Another concern I have with that property, I've noticed myself, it appears to me that we have some encroachment, so we need to look into that. That's a separate
oh
issue.
really?
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
We have no encroachment that I know of.
Well, we can check it out.
Needs to be looked at.
All right, well, that one I think we could, the prism that we should look at that particular piece of property is through the stormwater management prism. And if we can get more use and more monetary value out of that parcel by using it for stormwater management, I think we should take it off the table as a potential sale.
Can I just emphasize that point? When I saw the picture of that site, I didn't realize we owned that. I'm immediately thinking, in the future, we're not big fans of detention basins, but everywhere else in the country you go. In fact, the Blue Route, the 476 Northeast Extension, they've built probably about 7 or 8 detention basins all along that highway to reduce the outflows from the highway into the communities there. We should keep in mind that even though we don't have the money necessarily now, or we don't have the will to put detention basins in, anywhere near a creek where we could store water and release it slowly, that's going to be prime real estate for us 50 years from now.
We have a committee that might help us with this one to, as you said, Elaine, increase its use as a stormwater management facility.
Right.
So our stormwater management committee, Steve, you're the
Absolutely.
delegate to that.
This parcel lends itself very well to that, I think.
I'm going to just, I'm going to side with Bill on this. In the priority of pieces of land like that, to me, that piece is more valuable as passive open space than it is as, with a stormwater basin on it. So we'll run the numbers and find out, but.
Why couldn't it be both?
Well, there can be sophisticated designs that do a lot of both. I wouldn't want to see big basins like you see at interchanges in New Jersey and around the King of Prussia Mall, that sort of thing. That I believe Bill's accurate about the passive open space argument. Whether it's worth maintaining that passive remains to be seen. But I'm less moved by the stormwater intervention argument.
Okay, any other comments on that one? And then we have our last, the Jacquerie House, which we heard a preview of in the last presentation. And this one is a little bit more time sensitive than the others in that we really need to do something about this house. It's declining quickly. So we need to make a decision what to do with this property.
Does the township have a need or a use for the garage, Steve?
I mean, there was definitely space in that garage, and the previous owner's son had used that. But I'm a fan of keeping ours centralized, if you will. But there are issues with the house. We're actually waiting for some prices for some remediation work to be done to try to give the board some scale, but we don't have them yet.
Right.
When was the house built? What year?
The house probably predates the mansion, and the mansion was turn of the century, 1900, 1907.
I don't remember.
Well, if this house is loaded with asbestos and mold and everything else, it's a beautiful parkland. We've got rid of the tenant. We should probably just, financially, if somebody wanted to do that over, it would cost millions of dollars.
Well, if the Historical Society thinks it's important to save, perhaps they can raise the funds to save it.
Couldn't we sell it and let somebody else save it?
This is
Well, the
exactly
problem,
what I'm thinking.
Don, John looked at this before and needs to look at it again, is whether we could subdivide it off, because that was bought with Project 70.
And it's in a residential area, correct? So
Yeah.
it would just be one nice residential house in a nice
It
residential
would be a
neighborhood
perfect
next to a
candidate for
delightful park.
resale if we can overcome the hurdle of the funding source.
Okay.
Right,
well,
so
that's my
if we
sense.
could subdivide and sell, we can put out I don't know if it's called an RFP when you're selling one piece of property, but we could put out, this is what we want to happen to this property. Is there a buyer out there who'd be willing to rehab and keep it as a one single-family home, keeping the historic value to it,
Right.
and put all that money into it? I mean, there's got to be some number where it works out, where we'll get some money back. The house will be rehabbed and kept in our inventory of beautiful historic homes, and gets lived in.
But the house would have to be tripled in size to meet a family, to have someone come in and spend all that money.
it was perfect for Jacquerie.
Yeah, it was around, for $400, yeah, you can get somebody to live there.
Well, you don't know. You don't know.
What's that?
Maybe someone, we wouldn't know unless we put it out there.
Well, let's settle the subdivision issue before we debate much further.
But if we do, is there consensus that we would be willing to consider selling that off to the right buyer?
No.
Yes, I am.
Well, again, we have this beautiful 37-acre park. You drive up the driveway. They're not building it. They're not making any more to land. Why would we start putting, a resident in there that we have no control over? They would own the land. They would own part of our park.
We could ease it.
What's that?
We could ease it.
You could ease it, but I'm telling you, you're coming up that driveway. It's absolutely beautiful. It's a beautiful park.
But you don't see that house,
Yeah, but
Bill.
What's that?
You don't see the house because of the trees.
but we don't. I'm saying we don't need a house there.
Well,
it's parkland.
we don't need a house there, I agree.
Yeah.
We don't need a house there.
That's right.
Yeah.
What's that?
All right, well, I guess
Well, we bought it, so.
Well, yeah, but it's in such bad condition.
Right.
Probably should be torn down.
We'd want to balance the desire to have a lovely park continue with the need to give weight and credence to preservation of a
No,
outbuilding to a historic
If you want to
mansion.
preserve that house, that'd be great, but if they're going to come in and triple the size of it, you're not preserving the house. You know?
Right, that's true.
It's
So we
not
have it-
gonna- It's
so
not
we
going to
put-
function as a modern house with a nice big kitchen, with a family room, with 4 bedrooms and 3 baths,
But the
setting would
reality
be
is,
great.
none
But
of
if
this-
somebody wanted to come in and take it the way it is, and just put a little addition on and keep it on and live there, I'd be happy to lease it to
Right.
them.
But
But why
until
don't
we
we
settle
explore
the
that?
funding issues and whether we can even subdivide it, we're just wasting our time talking about it.
So can we, the consensus, it seems like we could ask John Rice to get back to us on the Project 70 question and deed and donated act question of whether we can sell this, subdivide and sell this parcel off with a deed restriction and an easement.
All right, are there any other items anybody wanted to bring
I
up?
have one little question for Bob and Steve. Not Willows, Fenimore Park. Used to be, years and years ago, and Bill, you have the history on this, was an estate owned by the Fenimore family. And as part of that estate, there was a house that's long gone. But what has survived is one building, which is a stables. And I was there Saturday with my 3-year-old granddaughter, and she was exploring everywhere, and I was chasing her. And for the first time since I've lived here, over 35 years, I took a look at that stables. It's in bad shape. What do we use? Do we use that for anything, or does the school district use it for anything? Do we know?
It's the restrooms that are accessed by folks who actually reserve the facility, if they want to reserve the pavilion at the park. They basically use that as a bathroom. It's a public bathroom. It's accessed by a key, though. So if you rent the park to have a picnic at the pavilion, you get a key. You get to go in and access that
Okay.
area, and you get to use
I should
the
have
bathroom.
asked you, sorry, Tammy, because it is part of our parks. So it's basically used for just that.
There's some minimal storage baseball utilizes it
Little
for as
League
well.
and one of those, we're using it for minimal storage, but it's really in deplorable condition. One of the discussions we had about cell towers was the inclusion of total upgrade of that facility and repairs.
Okay.
All right, so unless there's another property,
Yeah,
somebody?
I have
okay.
one. We had talked, when we were discussing this years back, and Jim, it was before you were on the board, we had talked about the Plant Avenue lot. That's that small lot that was purchased 8 or 9 years ago. Probably more than that, probably closer to 10, right?
Woodland Avenue.
Is it in the Cressa report or no?
Yes,
It
well,
is.
I'm assuming it's the one called Plant Avenue.
There are two of them.
there's two of them.
I think you're
Okay.
referring to Woodland Avenue.
I'm referring to the one that is somebody's garage.
That's the Bowden family. Plant Avenue, we've had
Very
that
good.
forever.
So,
That's
so
been-
to me, that site fits into that category that John identified earlier, John Nagel identified, that we're not using it, there's zero utilization, so we should sell it back to somebody, sell it back to the homeowner, we should do something with it, but we shouldn't just have a piece of property that we allow someone else to use. My understanding is there's an arrangement where they cut the grass and they get to use it. And I don't think that that's appropriate for us. I think that we should,
I agree, sell it back to them, but I don't know if they'll pay for it.
Well, you'd have to sell it with a deed restriction. But the other thing is
Why?
the reason, pardon me?
Why?
Because you wouldn't want a house or a duplex built there. You could
Yeah.
build a duplex there.
I don't think you can build it, but that's a
Well,
detail.
if you have a separate deed or parcel of land in Pennsylvania,
Yeah, but nobody thought it was big enough to put a,
Yeah, Bill, it's not big enough.
well, when I had it for sale, it was big enough to put a duplex there, okay? You only need 5,450 square feet, and it's like, 1,200. But here's the issue. The issue is that we have a stormwater problem in Wayne, and one of the solutions was spend $45 million to tear down 40 houses,
That
okay?
was 30 years ago.
No, that was a couple years ago, okay?
Didn't know about that.
To tear all the houses down. If you want to solve the problem, you tear the houses down that were built in the floodplain. Now, here we have a floodplain, we own part of Plant Avenue, we own that, and it's stormwater management is what it is. Now, if you want to tear the garage down, you want to put up a fence, you want to maintain it yourself, but it's a nice little park in there, but it's stormwater management is what it is. And when I sold that property, when I represented the seller and the township bought it, they could put a duplex there, 2 units, okay? And that's why the township bought it, so they couldn't put a duplex there in the floodplain. And nobody's ever done anything with it.
for that particular property, though, I would say it's not stormwater management, it's a garage, a driveway, and a lawn.
Well, what's the creek that runs right next to it?
But it's still, the property is a garage, a driveway, and a lawn. And it should serve some public function if it's public land, and it's not serving a public function. And maybe there's a use for it.
We're going to take a 5-minute break. Okay, guys, let's try and get back up to the podium, dais, everyone. Okay, I think we're ready to get started. If everyone could come and get back in their seats. We were finishing up our conversation about the property that Commissioner Curley had mentioned. I don't think we ever had a proper identifier for it. It wasn't Plant Avenue.
No, it's Woodland Avenue.
Woodland
With the
Avenue,
garage on it,
okay.
yes.
And I just want, my closing thought on that is that I agree, we should not have public land that's been, turned over to private use and not really serving our purposes. But I would like to suggest that we investigate whether we can better use that parcel for stormwater management, as it's right next to a creek in a problem flood area.
Well, as Bill Spengler just told me at the break, the township owns, I don't think it's been identified by Cressa. We own, behind the backyards of Poplar Avenue along the creek, we own a whole strip of ground. And we could use the Woodland Avenue property that Don mentioned, which is a white elephant, and that strip, and through some creative engineering, come up with a riparian buffer that would help our stormwater problem and help the people on Willow Avenue and Pennsylvania Avenue downstream. That ought to be something that our Stormwater Advisory Committee takes up.
Stormwater Advisory Committee and our whoever we hire as our stormwater consultant, the engineers we hire. I mean, some of that is engineering.
So Steve, will you make that another assignment for or Bob, can you ask Steve to do it, please?
Yes, sir, and yes, sir.
The Stormwater Advisory Committee takes up the question of a riparian buffer using township lands behind the backyards of Poplar Avenue.
And the other parcel also on Woodland?
Yes, better utilizing them.
Parcel on the other side of the creek on Plant Avenue.
Yes.
Okay, I think we're finished with that item. And John, you want to?
Yeah, in the essence of time, we have a caucus item, H on the agenda, Resolution 2014-38, that's just going to be cursory in nature. I'd like to move that up to benefit the person who is the property owner that has come from out of the state for that element. So if you could come up. I don't really have any comment on this, but this is Public Works and Engineering. You want to take this?
Why don't you move the approval of the resolution? I'll second, and then we'll discuss it.
Yeah, I'll move Resolution 2014-38, granting final approval of the subdivision pursuant to a court order partition of the property at 30 and 32 Garrett Avenue.
Second.
All right. I don't think I need to say much here at all. Maybe Steve Norsini should tell us how this came about.
I'm going to actually defer to our solicitor. This is a court-ordered settlement.
Okay.
So if John wants to speak to it, and then we can speak on the engineering side of it.
I'm going to defer to Mr. Cornelia, who was representing one of the parties to this litigation, which resulted in the partition.
Okay. If we can, I don't know if you guys have a plan in front of you or not. This is the property. This property was owned by Spencer Geddes, who I'm sure his name is familiar to almost everyone on the board here. Spencer Geddes on Garrett Avenue. It's on Garrett Avenue. And it's always existed as a twin and another residence in the rear. But it's always been one parcel. It's never been subdivided into different parcels. Mr. Geddes passed away, and he left one part of the twin to one sister, the other part of the twin to the other sister, and then said that the back house is going to be tenants in commons between the two of them. Basically, all this is doing is dividing the property because it is one parcel. We had some disputes, and so we had to go into a partitioning action in Delaware County. And what we're doing is just dividing the parcel. We're not adding anything, not adding any residences. So the property line will be going down the middle of the twin. One family will own the twin and the property in the rear, and my client, Mrs. Downs, will own the other side of the twin.
Is this the property where they redid the twin and sold them?
No.
No, it's another
No,
property.
this has been in the Geddes family for probably 70, 80 years.
Yeah, all right.
Any questions from the
No, this is
commissioners?
passed.
Any comments? Any staff comment or questions? Any public comment or questions? All those in favor said aye.
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 Any opposed? Passes 7-0.
Thank you. All right, I'll return to item F under Personnel Administration. This is a motion to authorize to receive RFPs for professional planning services to review the CICD ordinance as well as traffic impacts to the designated area for application in the conditional use hearing. The background on this is, well, maybe I'll have Bob Zinkowski comment on this, but in essence, we haven't announced it actually tonight, but Kevin Kachansky has been deployed, our Director of Community Development, and he's also our Senior Codes Officer and also would be overseeing a lot of the efforts over the next several years concerning months, sorry. Yeah, he was deployed to Afghanistan in the Air Force. Air Force or, yeah. Air Force for 9 months. So he will not be back for quite some time. In order to backfill the roles and responsibilities of that position, the Township Manager has recommended that we employ the services of a certified planner to help guide other staff, including engineers on staff and the Board of Commissioners at understanding the impacts and the conditional use approval process for CICD. So that's the background. I'll motion
Second?
to authorize the manager to do so.
Second?
I'm going to recuse myself as this pertains to the conditional use application that Villanova may file.
I have two questions. What does it mean to review the CICD?
What we would be looking for is here is, as the CICD as it stands today, as part of this, they would review this, comments from the board, comments from the public, the Friends to Preserve Radnor, their version, to have an independent planner assess the impact that this development will have upon the community, in which during the conditional use hearing, this planner could present this to Villanova as part of this for the board to consider and adopt as a condition from an outside firm that would place the burden of the expenses completely on Villanova University during this development. In regards to any impacts, that's infrastructure, again, that you'd have a separate planner and then also make recommendations as to numerous comments that were made throughout this process by the commissioners, by the public. And I think this would be very beneficial, especially with a lot of the conversation we have heard, to have an independent come in and make these recommendations to the board.
And
Well,
we don't have an application before us, correct? We don't. There is no application. So I mean, I guess I'm a little.
I think by using
is this? It was presented as Kevin's away. We need someone to fill his shoes, and then it became we're going to charge this to Villanova. Is this directly related to the conditional use? I'm still not clear why we're doing this.
What it is we're using, I think what we've heard a lot is the use of an independent planner to be able to come in and make some objective recommendations. Maybe the term application is wrong. There's not an application. It's that you would use this plan as, to be applied towards this conditional use.
Right.
So it's not an application.
Didn't we already have this discussion a few weeks back? It seems to me that it's a repeat of a decision we made, whether it was a month ago or 2 weeks ago.
Well, I think it could be, I think, from that, but I think this is a little bit more of using this independent planner because there has been a lot of good information that has come up during the discussion. I think it's good from just not only the staff or the commissioners, but we have an independent planner that actually helps makes these recommendations because there are a lot of issues that came up, traffic, infrastructure, various terms, stormwater management, lighting, sound, a lot of those issues that I believe an independent planner would carry a lot of good information.
If I may, if you're asking for us to approve someone to advise us during the conditional use process, I'm all in favor of that. But we passed the CICD, although we'll have an action about that later tonight. So there's no value to the way you're describing it, in my opinion. Now, I certainly support hiring someone, since Kevin's away, to help us during the conditional use process.
So can I just interject here? This is a motion authorized to receive RFPs. I can't predict when Villanova will come to us with a plan. They've offered a letter to us telling us they'd hold off into May. But in reality, if we want to have someone in place to be in that seat for when a plan most likely will come in, figure June, I think it's prudent to go ahead and move that process along. We're not telling Bob to hire someone. We're just asking him to send out RFPs for this role. It's going to take about a month to find someone. Planners they're contractors. They're booked. You can't just say, I need you, and you'll show up. So I would argue that maybe Bob hasn't described it in the best light here. The reality is Kevin has been deployed. We need someone on staff, in addition to the excellent engineers that we have, to give us kind of round that experience out, that skill set, to give us all the input that we need under conditional use. Because remember, the board voted to approve an ordinance that didn't have a lot of the controls and safeties in place that the community wanted. So there's a good chance that if we have the staff in place, that when this conditional use approval comes in at some point, that we're staffed properly to address that. Keep in mind also that I've been in this seat 6 years. I've never seen so much potential planning and potential for plans to come in. To think that our existing staff can handle a $350 million project when they're currently already tasked with doing lots of other things, it would be foolish to think that we could do that. I mean, the point is the fee structures are in place. If and when Villanova comes in with a plan, they're going to be paying a lot of fees, and we have to hire professionals. We already have a staff of engineers. We may need twice as many engineers to handle the scope and the complexity of such a plan. We also, and not to mention the other things that are before us, with our dross and
he's not being hired to do those.
No. Roger?
Well, I would argue to widen the scope of this, not just CIC.
Roger, can't Gannett Fleming provide this service?
Yes, we can.
So why do we need it? Why do we need it?
Well, I think we
And
want to put
Gannett
it out
has
to bid.
planners on staff, correct, Roger? There's plenty of planners, there's
Yes,
plenty of
that's-
landscape architects.
That's correct, yes.
Right. So why not just use the existing relationship?
Well, we could. I don't have any issue with that. I think Bob was just trying to do what's required to put it out to bid. Try to put it out to bid. So, and I think we can. I don't need to have a narrow scope here. It's not just about the CICD. Kevin Kachansky is gone for 9 months now, so we really need to do something.
Well, Bob, who's going to do Kevin's job, his day-to-day job?
Right now, we have that split amongst several individuals on the staff that are taking that on, but I think what we're looking at here is a much bigger scale of what you have. I understand with using Gannett Fleming with that, but I think too is they're the engineers that'll be reviewing it, and from those that may question that, now the same planner is the same engineer, so it's the same process. You have someone that's completely independent
So
to that.
we have no trust in government at all.
Well, I have trust in government, but the issue is you want as many.
Yeah.
It's not, you know what?
The issues.
We've seen the contention here. It's easier to hire an independent, and then we don't have that argument anymore. So.
Right, and then I'm gonna challenge that. I think we have we think we hire somebody and they tell us the answer. That's not right. We hire a variety of people. We get a variety of answers.
Exactly.
And we have to evaluate those answers. So
And I think that's to Bob's
there's
point.
an implication that we're going to hire somebody and they're going to tell us how it is, and I don't think that's accurate.
That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for advice from as many professionals as I can get over the next 2 years. That's what I'm looking for.
Well, I withdraw my second.
Wait, well, I'll replace the second. My question was the prior time that we looked at this issue, did that relate to the must or did that relate to the CICD?
Must. That was must, when we were hiring independent.
It was independent planner for the wasn't it? What?
Yes, yes.
What we were looking for, Commissioner, was both. to actually look at both. To look at both of them, the must and the CICD. The CICD is one that the board has approved. The must ordinance, not sure where that even stands at this particular point. But I think because we have one that at this time has been approved, that we begin that process.
Well, I've seconded it to the extent that Bill's has been withdrawn. If it hasn't been, then, so I'm seconding the motion. I don't see how it would hurt.
Yeah, okay. I've been thrust into the role of chair on this thing. Well, I've got to be intellectually honest on this. As the people that oppose the Villanova ordinance know, I voted in favor of the Villanova ordinance and rejected any more delay than we had, 23 or 27 months of evaluation, and said that I was fully in favor of many of the things that the Villanova opponents were advocating. I just didn't want to hold up the process of the ordinance evaluation and passage any longer. And I ticked off the things that should be evaluated after the ordinance was passed, and those included architectural matters, traffic, equipment noise, equipment placement, thank you, lighting, and stormwater. And so I'm going to vote for this. I think we need this capability, this capacity, this talent. It's only a question of timing. Do we need it tonight? We need to start the process tonight, or should we wait 2 weeks or wait a month? John Fisher says we better start now because it will take time to get somebody on board, and then that person has, or that firm has to get ready. And we have an ethics matter that's running separately from this board, and if that, well, I don't want to get into the facts there, but so in any event, I'm going to vote in favor of this. I think it's a sensible idea, and it's just a matter of timing. But I think John Fisher has made the argument, and it's persuaded me that tonight is the night to start it.
But Jim, the conditional use is going to be reviewed. All these things are going to come in under conditional use. We're going to spend 2, 3, 4 months reviewing this with our engineer, reviewing everything and making recommendations. And you want someone else to come in and second guess everything he did and decide whether what he's saying is right or wrong?
Yes.
Well, I'm not sure that there's overlap or supervision or second guessing. My simple-minded approach is engineers do one thing and planners do something else.
But the point is, Jim, Gannett Fleming has planners on staff. They have the full menu of people that we need to move forward and do a thorough job.
And I would even add, Jim, to get what you want, I think you need to be more specific with scope. I mean, this is a great contract to have because you can't fail. No matter what you do, you're going to be able to satisfy it. It's just, it's too vague.
It's not a contract at this point. It's far from a contract.
I'm using the terms too loosely.
If we go into conditional,
this is to put out an
if we go into
RFP,
conditional use and you want an independent planner because you want what your engineers are telling you, think you need more information, then you can hire an independent planner at that time.
Well, we need another Kevin Kachansky and put clothes on that person. It's a planner. Gannett Fleming can't do that. Well, they can. Okay, they can. However, we've had so many critical comments from our public over the last, again, 27 months about conflicts and not paying attention to what people are saying and on and on and on, some of which I agree with, some of which I don't. And I don't think I want to hear any more of that in the sense that Gannett Fleming's right hand is going to do engineering and Gannett Fleming's left hand is going to do planning. I'd rather have them separate.
All right, call the question. Jim, call the question.
Have we heard from everybody?
Yep, we're ready to vote.
Yeah. All right, before I ask the audience, does Mr. Zinkowski's people have anything to add to what's been said to this point? No, okay. There's nobody in the public that wants to talk, is there?
Hello, Matt Marshall, 228 Walnut Avenue. And I applaud the township manager, particularly with Mr. Kachansky's military service. This is a new dynamic, and it's a new day in Radnor Township. We have gone through many displays of residents' opposition to some of the ordinances, and I think good planning needs to come back to Radnor Township. I'll illustrate this by talking a little bit about the Radnor Middle School and the decision to keep Radnor Middle School in Wayne. It was a community effort. It was a good decision. And looking back, I don't think anybody would have opposed the decision. That was good planning. Mr. Spengler talked about Rosemont Elementary School, which I'm a graduate of, Roland Elementary School, and we lost those two assets in the township, and they've had 50 to 100-year implications. Planning by stakeholders is the best practice. Zoning, whether it be PLO or the planned institutional, is the first step in the process. Property owners, residential, institutional, township residents, and the director of community planning with third-party independent planning consultants are the best way to get to these results. Jim Higgins said, when we were talking about this very building that we're standing in right now and the solutions that we can come back to make and right this situation, subcommittees working with the township staff, and this has to be addressed on a bigger level when you're talking about the CICD and the must ordinances. Particularly now, with Mr. Kachansky leaving for 9 months, we need an independent planner who can do the peer review that's required, and we need an open and transparent process. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marshall. And is there anybody else?
Madam Chair. Madam Chair, how are you tonight?
Chair right now.
I'm sorry.
I'm not madam either.
Madam Chairman and Commissioners.
And your name is Murphy, I think.
Al Murphy, 627 Glenmurray Road. I was here a month or so ago and talked about all the planning issues that are going on in the township. One of the things that I highlighted among several was perplexity over what you were doing, not only the scale of the development, but the process. Since that time, we have the revelation of an ethics issue, which maybe calls into question the whole issue of the vote on Villanova.
Why don't we just tar and feather me now and not have a hearing? You know, let's
No,
just assume that it's
Bill,
that I'm wrong.
this is on the public
Let's
record. Just let me.
Okay, Mr. Murphy, please. We have an ethics process.
No, I understand.
Underway. We have an ethics board that's going to consider the charges against Mr. Spengler. That's going to go forward. It has to go forward.
I'm not.
We're not going to influence it. We're not going to talk about it. We're going to talk about this motion right now, which is planning.
Yeah, we are.
Thank you.
We are. Just let me finish. This is not an issue to bring up the whole ethics issue, but since the residents have been speaking over these many, many months, there have been a number of revelations. The most recent was rolled out on Thursday night. Today, I get a copy of a letter from my commissioner from the former independent planner indicating he had some questions about the process when he was engaged by Radnor Township. People have been up here speaking ad nauseum about issues as it relates to process and problems with development, et cetera, and I applaud the concept of having an independent planner be involved with the township. But quite frankly, I think you have a much larger problem than just hiring one independent planner. You as a board and everyone here on staff, including John Rice, needs to reestablish trust with the residents that you all know what you're doing. To say that we've brought someone in that's independent, and Elaine has said on a number of occasions we have plenty of experts, starting to question the veracity of some of that expert advice, particularly if you bring someone in and reading the letter, it appears that what you are looking for is really an answer to a question that's already been asked and not true independence. To reestablish trust, you need to look at the planning process holistically, not Villanova, not the Must, not any other development you have going on. We're talking hundreds of millions of dollars of development. Somehow you have to reaffirm with the township that that's in fact the way it's going forward is actually something that the township can buy into, the residents can buy into. So I would encourage you to establish that trust by truly looking at something that's independent through a transparent process. I don't want to pick by race. I don't want to pick by Bob. I don't want to pick by anybody. I want a true process that you can identify the person or persons to help you make these decisions. They're much too important to the township. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Is there anybody else that wants to speak?
Mr. Chairman, if I may?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy referred to something a commissioner sent out to, is it the community or something that? I'm just curious.
maybe
first
you
time I
should
heard
clarify
something
that.
We'll
like this.
discuss that later. I don't know what that is yet.
Well, let him clarify the comment.
What's the question? I'm sorry.
You mentioned a commissioner sent something out to the ward or you or?
Yeah, there was the independent planner that was involved with ostensibly hired to vet out the biomed.
Okay.
Resigned the assignment.
Okay.
There was a question about the resignation, that the
Okay.
process was tainted. He wrote a letter to clarify that. It went to this board.
Okay.
Went to actually John.
Okay. But somebody put
2 weeks
something out.
ago.
Yeah, but yeah,
My commissioner sent it to me today.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So it's going to
it's
going to be in the public.
I know
momentarily.
No, I
It's a public
appreciate Mr.
document at this
Murphy's.
point. No, it's not.
I appreciate
Oh, yes,
Mr.
it is.
Murphy's commentary here, but
Well, it's an ethics violation.
I didn't send any correspondence for that. I did not send that letter to anyone, including Mr. Murphy.
All right.
We had correspondence regarding that letter. That's what he's referring to. We had we.
Well, anyway, let's move on, but I just want to remind everyone up here that any document that's held by the public is a public document. I haven't sent any documents out, but they're public documents, okay? You know, Don, this attitude, though, that the public can't see certain documents is exactly what's feeding the distrust of this board. And I want it to end. Just let it end. Stop being protective of what isn't yours. It's not ours.
All right. Well, I don't want to get into the issue that Mr. Murphy raised and Mr. Booker apparently is part of about an independent planner that was contacted, and so we can go into that some other time. Let us continue on. Is there any other comment on the motion to authorize the hiring of to receive requests for proposals for professional planning services?
Good evening, everybody. I'm Diane Edbrill. I live on Spruce Tree Road, and I'm very pleased to learn about this particular agenda item today. As you all know, I've been up here many times asking that the township engages services of a planner. I would request that we don't limit it to what's stated here in the title of this agenda item, but that we really open it up. I think there are a number of things going on that the township really needs an outside planner on. So in addition to whatever next stage of the CICD we encounter, that's certainly an appropriate place for the services of a planner or a group of planners, a firm of planners, really, in fact, because that's a big project. And certainly also, as I've said many, many times, I would hope that if we do engage a planner, that the township benefits from that individuals or firms work on the biomed site. My understanding is that currently there is another planning firm or planner who was selected by Mr. Rice in order to do the by right analysis of the biomed site. And while we're talking about transparency and planning, I want to say that I think that it's really unusual and less than transparent to have the township solicitor be the only one who knows who has been selected to do this analysis, that there's much more at stake. And it's as Mr. Fisher said, if all this stuff is happening sort of behind closed doors, then the people like me who get up here are concerned. Why is it happening this way? Why shouldn't it be out as part of an RFP? Frankly, why isn't the by right analysis and any other sort of ordinance and proposed ordinance evaluation, or as well as the conditional use for anything that's a done deal, be done by people with lots of experience in this field of planning. I do want to add that I appreciate Mr. Commissioner Higgins' sensitivity and his statement on the record that he feels that a planner should be independent from our engineering firm, and I agree with that. And I want to state that my reason for that is that pretty much as Mr. Higgins said, is that the planner sort of is coming at it from a different place, and you need a little bit of independence from the engineer so that everyone is checking one another, same way that the engineers can do a little oversight on the planners as well. It's I think, a healthier relationship with sort of checks and balances. And I do think, with all respect to Mr. Phillips and his firm, that his firm can never really be independent because they're under contract with Radnor Township, that we have a contract with them. They provide services to us. It's not exactly an employment relationship, but it's similar enough so that I think that the sense of independence is lost if we would use one of our contracting firms to do that. I'm not suggesting that anyone is less than competent, Mr.
Can you please just talk to the board,
All right.
not to the engineer?
Sure.
Thank you.
But in any event, so I think that there are so many opportunities to engage the use of a planner, and I certainly wish Kevin a very safe and rewarding tour. But this is also an opportunity for us to have all these challenges looked at with fresh sets of eyes in a new process that is more transparent. And I really want to say that I think, with all due respect, Mr. Rice should not be picking the person who's doing the by right analysis behind closed doors and then having us get a report later. It's not the way it should be done. I know that that's what was put in motion, and I guess people perceive that this was a way to counteract some of the problems that came up with the prior outside person. But, whatever it is, we can't let the good stand in the way of the perfect, but we have to set the bar high enough so that it's good. And I just want to encourage everyone on the board to, embrace the idea of getting some outside expertise, because the things that this township is facing over the next several months are going to change the face of Radnor Township forever. And, I, for one, would like to live here without that kind of catastrophic disruption. I think that some of the stuff that we're facing has the potential to bring us. So thank you very much for your time and attention tonight.
Mr. Higgins, if I could just state one thing for the record.
Mr. Norsini.
Our consultants are independent. One consultant comes from Gilmore and Associates. One consultant comes from Gannett Fleming. They are all licensed, as am I. So I know no offense was taken, but I think the audience should know that we do have independent consultants. And when Amy Kaminsky does her traffic review, that is totally independent of Roger Phillips' review, so from an engineering standpoint, Roger does saldo and zoning, Amy does traffic, and whoever the planner is or whatever third party, they're all independent. So I just want to make sure that the residents and anybody on TV knows that just like this planner will be under contract for the township, that's the same setup we have with our consultants. But everybody is independent. They are separate folks.
I'm glad you're standing up for professional engineers. I like that.
We're all licensed over
And
here.
I
so.
will comment that Ms. Kaminsky was very good on Villanova. When the Villanova traffic study came in, she found problems with it, defects in it, and told them to fix it, and they fixed it. So there was independence there. Yes, please. Come ahead.
Good evening, everyone. Marisol Hahn, formerly of John's ward, resident now in Mr. Curley's ward. So that would be in Wayne. I was very much a part of one of these when Garrett Hill was an issue. That was also a comprehensive plan offshoot that we were going to become our own little different part anyway that had to be, and it was going to come from the top to the bottom. And I remember we all marched to the temporary quarters of the Planning Commission at that time when they were still over across from the BB, Bed Bath and Beyond, and those offices there across the way in the old Sears area.
The Brandywine properties.
Yes, the Brandywine properties, the old Sears area. That's how old I am. So it wasn't a pleasant experience, and it was not an easy experience to have an independent group work with us. But the point is, they worked with us meaning the people who were going to be affected. And we were even part, thank goodness, of the process of choosing who they were. At least we were sitting in the room. So there was no feeling that something was being kept away from us. And I have to echo what John is saying. A lot of what I feel here is like people are beginning to think that, something underhanded is going on all the time. And it's really better, it's a much better process if you involve the very people who are invested, because once they get invested, and then you bring them along through the process, and then at the end they can't say they didn't have a chance to say something, and they didn't have a chance to get something clarified. So I encourage you all to vote for the RFP. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Hahn. Roberta Winters.
Roberta Winters, 326 Williams Road. I am speaking for myself as a resident of the Garrett Hill area. I would like someone who is sitting at the Board of Commissioners to amend the motion as written to broaden its scope beyond what it states in here, perhaps beginning with the line to review the CICD ordinance as well as the traffic impacts of the designated area for application in the conditional use hearing, so that the professional planning services might have a broader application, which I think is needed during the next 9 months. Thank you.
Is there any other comment from the audience? Is there anything else from members of the board before we vote?
I do have something, if you'd like to go through it right now.
No.
Well, shall we get the motion voted on first and then go ahead? All right, so the motion is to authorize the receipt of requests for proposals for professional planning services to review the comprehensive integrated college development ordinance as well as traffic impacts to the designated area for application in the conditional use hearing. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay.
Nay.
It's a 3-3 vote, which means the motion fails. I think we are now at the point on the agenda.
Jim, before you move on, I want to make it clear, the reason I voted against it was because we have a relationship with Gannett Fleming. They can provide that service. John.
But it's an
John,
RFP. They can bid on it.
let me finish.
They can bid on it.
They don't need to. We already have a contract. These people are professionals. I'm a registered professional engineer. You take an oath, they've taken an oath, and they will live up to it. The only reason that we're even talking about a third-party independent is for window dressing, not to get us better results.
Do you want to make a motion? I have no problem. I don't care who does it. They're all professionals.
We have a contract with Gannett Fleming. Bob says we need this service.
I think let's put it this way. Things have changed. So Kevin, again, we didn't even know this at the last meeting, that Kevin was going to depart for 9 months. I think we need to authorize administration to move in this direction. Again, I am perfectly comfortable with Gannett Fleming being the house that has the planner. That's not even a question to me. But I think the RFP process just is what good government does. We put an RFP out, Gannett Fleming can bid on it, and of course, if your bid comes in similar to others, they're the best, highest qualified bidder. So I didn't write this agenda item, so all I'm trying to say here is I think we need to move ahead in this direction because information has changed. You know, Kevin is not working here. We cannot expect the existing staff in community development to assume all the responsibility that Kevin had and take on a $350 million project that comes in next month.
All right, can I suggest two things?
Yes.
We've already voted, but you have a point. Perhaps we should take it up with the township manager, how we can fill the role, the void left by Kevin Kachansky, irrespective of what happens on planning, on CICD. All right?
And my view
I'm fine
is
with that, yeah.
my view is that it would be better to have it not be Gannett Fleming doing the review of the as well as the design. It should be a separate group, separate company. I think that's better process.
Mr. Booker, if I may, we're not doing the design. We review what the applicant submits.
I said doing the design review, so it would be planning services for review, separate company from those that are going to be reviewing the plans for conformity with the code.
So I'll just for the heck of it, I'll throw a motion out because it is different to authorize.
It's not on the agenda, we can't do it. Ask Bob to come back to us and tell us how he's going to fill the hole.
This is Bob's agenda item. Bob has come to us and asked us for this.
He's
And
asked to
we're saying
review
no.
the CID, which we've already passed, John. We had a consultant, not an independent person. We had a consultant to do the Wayne business plan. We had a consultant that we hired to do the Garrett Hill plan. And then Bob said, well, let's go out and hire somebody. They're not independent. We're hiring them. We're paying them to look at the must ordinance. And that's what we're doing. We don't need a consultant to tell us about the CID ordinance. We already passed it. We're going to go to conditional use. And that's where everybody's going to come and have their say on all the issues that and our staff will review it and give us recommendations. And if we're not satisfied with that, if we think we need more help or more information, we'll work with the manager to get somebody to give us that. That's the way it works, John.
You're saying we need that help now?
No. The manager say he wants to review the CID. He
No,
wants to review
it says for the application in the conditional use hearing.
No.
It is, Bill, it says it right here.
I know, but
For
when-
application.
When
in
we get to the
use hearing.
conditional use hearing, if we need to hire somebody to do that, we will do that.
Both of
Okay.
you. It's
All right,
time to move on.
We are in extra innings now. It's 10 after 10, or 14 minutes after 10. And I think our chairwoman is going to recuse herself from item G on the agenda because it involves Villanova University. And I'm going to read out the item. This is under Community Development. Ordinance 2014-04, Introduction, rescinding Ordinance 2013-21, amending Chapter 280 of the Radnor Township Code, zoning ordinance, by establishing regulations for a new comprehensive integrated college development use within the planned institution district. And I think, Commissioner Fisher, you are the moving agency on this, and so you have the floor.
We have a motion and a second first.
Oh, okay, yeah. Is there?
Yeah,
you
that's,
wanna move-
I think that's the point.
You want to move the introduction?
I'll move the introduction of ordinance 2014-04. This is, it says rescinding, but this is for the repeal of ordinance 2013-21.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, it's been moved in second. Let's go ahead with discussion.
Okay. I think I'm just going to do this as fast as I can, but I'm going to put some information out, some reality out. So on March 31st, this board voted. There were, I believe, 4 votes in favor of passing the CICD ordinance. And under the MPC law, after 30 days that that ordinance takes effect. And any applicant that can take advantage of that new zoning code can submit a conditional use plan, and from the moment they submit that plan, they're vested. Their rights are vested. Regardless of whether we rescind this ordinance or not, they're vested. So if we were to somehow get 4 votes around this ordinance to rescind, we're looking at, through the MPC requirements, we're looking at a process of about 90 days. And that's only if everything's going in its favor. We've seen ordinances come here and take 2 years, and they don't get passed. So the reality is that Villanova will probably submit a plan, and they've, in a goodwill gesture, they've provided a letter to us stating that they would be willing to hold off until May 26th or the results of the Ethics Commission, whichever comes first. But in reality, you know, they have rights. They have rights. This board voted on a law. We gave them the rights as of, I believe, Thursday of this week to submit a plan. And they're doing what any other resident and taxpayer or property owner in the United States should be allowed to do, submit a plan. It's their right. So I'm saying this because it's the reality that even if I were successful in getting this introduction tonight, Villanova, Eastern, Cabrini, or any other entity in the township would be permitted to make application, become vested, and regardless of whether we rescind this ordinance 90 days from now, if they file before those 90 days, they're vested. We can't take it back. It's a law. We made a law. And on Thursday of this week, it becomes law that anyone can act on. So again, regardless of what I do with this and whether I get the votes, this board, I believe most of the voting members of the board acted in good faith the night of the 31st. They voted because they didn't believe in their hearts that Bill Spengler had a conflict of interest. We made a decision based on what we knew at the time. I had asked Bill Spengler questions.
John.
Yeah,
Yes,
John.
this is inappropriate. The public can tar and feather me in the papers.
No, I'm not tarring
attack
you.
my
I'm
name.
not getting into
But
it.
you as a commissioner are held to a higher standard, John. And you have no facts. There's a hearing to
I'm
be
not-
held. You can't accuse me of being guilty, or you
I'm
cannot
not-
decide in your own mind that I'm guilty.
I'm not going to give any
Well,
opinion.
you're starting down that road, John.
No, Bill.
And I already have 3 headlines
All right.
and 3 in
I
weeks
can assure
where I've been
you-
tarred and feathered.
I can assure you I will make no opinion
All right, I'd like to ask
as
you.
to whether you have violated anything.
I would like to ask you to stay clear
I will.
of the ethics. Don't even mention the word ethics.
I won't.
Or Mr. Spinkler in that connection, all right?
I won't.
Can we do, because we have a process going forward.
I understand that.
And I'm on the ethics board, and I'm going
I
to look
won't
at
mention the
it from
ethics.
scratch.
I won't.
All right, thank you.
But I will mention a conversation we had.
Ah, John.
No, hold on. Excuse me, I have a right to say this.
John.
It's not mentioning ethics.
No, I'll mention it myself. I'll mention it myself, John. You asked me, did you get any checks made out to you? I said they were made out to Wayne Little League, okay? And then they came up with a list of checks that were made out to me was for reimbursement of money that I put out, John, okay? I didn't lie to you like you go around telling people. You asked me. The checks are made out to Wayne Little League. And then I put a reimbursement in because I can't get 13 volunteers, and I had to pay some people out of my pocket, $2,000 or $3,000 that I had to wait to get reimbursed. So those checks were not payment for anything. But you go around and tell Bill Spengler lied to me. He got checks made out to his name. It's like, John, this is what it's like. I thought about it today. I could take an ethics charge against John Fisher and say that he shouldn't have voted on the Garrett Hill plan because him and his wife volunteered for Garrett Hill, whether it's true or not. The headline still goes, John Fisher charged with ethics charges. Then I could find out that John Fisher got a $250 check. Then the next week there'd be a headline, John Fisher's ethics charges are amended. John goes before the ethics board and says, hey, that $250, I bought something for the Garrett Hill Parade Committee. They reimbursed me. Fine. John, you didn't do anything wrong. But that's not going to be on the front page, John. I've already, when my son says to me, his secretary said he read about, here, Dad's up on ethics charges. When my fiance said, her son says, what's about the ethics charges, Bill Spengler? Okay? When I knock on the door to get a real estate, say, are you the Bill Spengler that has the ethics charges? John, so it's unfair. Anybody can take an ethics charge, whether it's founded or not. Now, you're going to go and say, oh, I asked Bill Spengler, did you get paid? I said, no, the checks were made out to Wayne Little League. Well, now I find out the checks were made out to Bill Spengler. He lied to me. I didn't lie to you, John. It was reimbursement,
Okay.
No, let's not wait till we have a hearing. You make your own decision.
I'm not making any decision about ethics.
Yes, you are. You're going to discuss the whole thing.
I asked
You're
you a
gonna-
question
Yeah.
if the money ever came back to you, and you told me no. And you
May I
told
make a point of order, please?
Yes, sure.
Jim, I think you need to establish some rules on this.
I've tried
I'm not
to-
saying Bill violated any rules.
Well, I think you just said that.
John.
No, I asked Bill a question. He gave me an answer that I don't believe was true. I based
Wait a
my
minute, you just called me a
entire... liar,
John.
Yes.
I gave you an answer. I didn't say.
We're going to go into recess. Is there a motion to go into recess?
No.
Don Curley?
I'll motion we go into recess.
Second? All right, we're in recess.
No, you got to vote. You got to vote on that motion.
All right, we are back in session. All right, we're going to move ahead. John Fisher, you had the floor, and you were talking about the rescission of Ordinance 2013-21, and we got off the path a little bit, and I'd like you to get back on the path and talk about that and not talk about Mr. Spengler or ethics. Thank you.
So my free speech rights are being violated at this point. And while I have no opinion of a fellow commissioner's ethics, whether he was violated the ethics or not, I don't have an opinion about that. I have an opinion that a fellow commissioner was not fully forthright and honest with me, and because of that, I made a decision on March 31st not to question that issue in public. That was my failing. So my issue here, again, I'm not here to judge if someone else has violated the Ethics Act or the ethics rules. But I certainly have a right to judge if another commissioner, in my opinion, lied to me.
Yeah, why don't you just say it publicly? You know, I mean, John, I didn't lie to you. Why you call me a liar publicly? What makes you so holier than thou that you can call another commissioner publicly? We were at a caucus meeting. You asked me a direct question. We didn't have a lot of time. And I said the checks are made out to Wayne Little League. That's exactly what I said to you, John.
Bill, I don't want to, Bill, I haven't, it's an opinion.
No, it's not an opinion. You're calling me a liar in public, John.
I said,
Here's what I'm going to do.
in my opinion.
I'm going to do this. John, I'm going to Commissioner Booker to see if he has statements to make on the motion on the floor.
My view is that we should do a rescission of that vote until such time as the Ethics Board is able to do its job. I also recommended against voting that evening because I thought there was a chance that something like this could occur. Further, before the vote on the 31st, I asked our counsel, our solicitor, and he reiterated before we voted that every person was available to vote. I think that subsequent, we have determined that there is an issue that could call into question the validity of the vote, and therefore we should not continue with this ordinance being in place so that certain entities would continue to act in reliance upon our prior approval. I think it's a serious issue. I think that we can get it done quicker than 90 days. I think that we should do a rescission and that we should not put other people and put entities in jeopardy of spending money, of furthering their plans for something that could be called into question based upon the review of the Ethics Board. Now, as John has pointed out, the applicant for the CICD, the main applicant Villanova, has indicated that they will not proceed until it's resolved, and I think that that's fine. Nonetheless, so as to not allow any others to avail themselves of that prior approval, that we should do a rescission. So I'm wholly in favor of this action. I think that it's prudent under the circumstances.
Thank you, Rich. Very temperate comments. Very good. Don.
I can see that we had incomplete understanding when we cast the vote. So as I see it, that's what we've tasked the Ethics Commission to do. They are going to evaluate the claim, and then they're going to advise us. When we get that information, then we will make a decision accordingly. So at this point, I believe it's premature to attempt to undo the vote because we don't know that the vote was cast in error. We don't know that there was a conflict. Furthermore, I don't think we're going to affect the vested rights because of what John described earlier. So I don't think it's timely. I don't think that we have to take action tonight. And then lastly, I think if we do undo this, my sense is that the same night that we undo it, we bring the ordinance again for another vote. I mean, I still believe in the ordinance. If there is a procedural problem, then I want to correct the procedural problem. But I intend to vote for the ordinance again if we have to undo it because of the procedural irregularity.
All right, thank you. Bill?
This is a great country. It's called a democracy. You know, you're innocent until proven guilty. So anyone that doesn't like any ordinance that passed, what you do is, if it's a 4-3 vote, bring up an ethics charge against the commissioner. Whether, you know, and you think you can stop the vote, that's not the way democracy works. You know, I'm innocent until proven guilty. I have full voting rights here.
All right, Bill, I take it you're opposed to the motion. Elaine, you're not voting, and John Nagel.
I'm opposed to the motion because one of the suppositions of the motion is that I was incorrectly informed when I voted, and in fact I was not. I voted based on the fact that I am happy with the ordinance and that I believe, after discussions with our solicitor, that the risk of passing it, regardless of the outcome of the ethics board, was minimal.
All right, and John Fisher, I think you are in favor of your own motion, so.
I just want to thank Villanova. You did send us a letter voluntarily agreeing, you know, not to submit a plan. I appreciate that the residents appreciate that. I think it's important to signal to Eastern and Cabrini that this question is out there. And, you know, because as of Thursday, they may be starting to cook up a plan and they may not realize what's going on. So the only thing I would ask is that any institution that submits a plan under this ordinance, that they're cognizant of the fact that while this board may rescind the ordinance in the future, that they will actually have a vested right, but they may want to consider the impact to the community in moving forward in something like that and being sensitive to it. Not asking them to not submit a plan, but I'm asking them to be sensitive to the fact that we had 110 people in this room that were opposed to it the night it passed, and just to be sensitive to their concerns. Thank you.
I'm going to vote against the rescission ordinance. And there's no point in my going into my reasons. I gave all the reasons why I was in favor of the ordinance 2013-21 when it was passed on March 31st. So are there any people in the audience that want to make a statement on the ordinance? And come forward, please. Try to be brief.
Yeah, hi, I'm Diane Edbrill, still at Spruce Tree Road. I just want to remind the three commissioners who have indicated that they are not going to vote for Mr. Fisher's ordinance repealing the CICD, that on March 24th, a full week before the vote on the CICD ordinance, a member of the public came forward before this board, stood where I'm standing, and informed you all that there was this ethics complaint that had been filed that was moving forward, and every single one of you had a week to reflect on that and decide whether or not, in light of that, it would be more prudent to hold off on the vote on the CICD until the ethics complaint was resolved. And clearly, in that week, a majority of you decided no. Damn the torpedoes. There's only a minuscule chance that, you know, we're going to get jammed up with this, so let's just go ahead. You know, sometimes it's better to wait a little bit. And with all due respect, I think now those of you who voted to go ahead with this vote and not wait are seeing the fallout, the frustration with the public. You know, there's rancor amongst all of you back and forth. So on the 24th, you were informed about this fly in the ointment, this, broken gear in the machine, and you had the opportunity to say, maybe we should just wait. No, you didn't wait. You voted. The ethics complaint is moving forward. I don't know how that's going to turn out, and I am not voicing any opinion on that here tonight. If it turns out one way, then we're in for a big mess of trouble for the township, because it's going to unfold over a much longer period of time in all likelihood than Villanova said that they were willing to wait. So unless you folks, Mr. Curley, and you, Mr. Spengler, and Mr. Higgins and Mr. Nagel, change your position, I'm not sure where you stand on this. I know you want to vote for the underlying ordinance, but I'm not sure how you're voting tonight. But unless at least two of you change your mind from what you've said here in the last 10 minutes, this is going to screw up the township. This is going to mess with Villanova. This is going to mess with Cabrini. This is going to mess with Eastern. And this is going to mess with all the people who live in and around those communities. And it is going to cost us money in litigation. It's going to cost us an additional...
You're assuming I'm guilty. Don't
No,
assume.
Mr. Spengler, I am not done talking, and my time is not up. And I have said that I specifically do not know what the outcome of this ethics proceeding is, nor am I going to entertain any opinion as to it at this point. All I know is that there was an opportunity to hold off, to restore the public's faith in the process, because right now the public thinks this process has been so subverted and so thwarted. That's why we're here. I have, plenty of other stuff I'd rather be doing at 10:30 on a Monday night. Same with a lot of these other people who have been coming to meeting after meeting after meeting. If everything is fine and Mr. Spengler did no wrong, great. Then you vote back for the CICD with the right process, with a clean slate and a clear record, so that everyone knows that it was done the right way. There's nothing lost. There's really nothing lost. There's the opportunity to say, maybe we shouldn't have rushed this vote. Maybe we should have waited another month or another 2 months for this to play out. In the grand scheme of things, it's far better, and it shows far more respect for the people of this community who elected you all, than to keep pushing and pushing and pushing back against a clamor of people who aren't saying anything. And I'm not saying you did anything wrong. I'm just saying we shouldn't have had the vote with you on it until we could resolve that. Until we could resolve
Innocent
that.
until proven guilty. Innocent.
Well, Mr. Spengler, the rules about conflicts of interest are different than the rules of evidence, and that's all I'm going to say
Okay, your
about
time
that.
is just about up.
Then my comments are just about up. I urge you, the gentlemen who have said that they are not inclined to vote for this repeal, this is your chance to just keep us out of a really ugly
All right.
situation potentially. Just do it. Bite the bullet. It's not casting a judgment. It's just saying, until this gets resolved, let's not get in any more hot water. I'm really pleading with you.
Okay, your 5
Mr.
minutes.
Nagel,
Your 5
Mr.
minutes are up.
Higgins, Mr. Spengler, and Mr. Curley. Please
5
do
minutes
the
are
right
up,
thing.
Mrs. Edbrell.
Thank you so much, Mr. Higgins.
Any other comments? Mr. Novelli?
Can I speak? I may be out of line, but I came here tonight because I wanted to come here before. My name is Monday Novelli, Armand Novelli. I live in Eagle Road in Wayne. I've known Bill probably as maybe 50, 60 years. I know he's worked very hard for Radnor Township. He and I have probably fought on everything that he voted for in this township. But I know this, that anytime he has voted for something and worked hard for something, he's done it because he did it for Radnor, and he felt Radnor. He's a real Radnorite. I am appalled that anybody would use I think a spread of lies, or not lies, but use that integrity idea. I never as many times as I fought with you, Bill, I've never questioned your integrity or where your heart was coming from and whether Radnor was number one or not. I think rather than being put in front of the ethic board, you should be applauded for all that you have done, and you should be well respected for all that you have done. Whether we like it or not, you deserve a lot of credit. And I want you to know that, and I want you to know it's coming from somebody that's fought with you many times, but always liked you, because I know you've been honest. Thank you.
Thank you.
Novelli. Is there anybody else in the audience? It's now 10:42.
Call the question.
Mr. Yiannopoulos?
I did read in Mr. Cornelius' letter that he's concerned that the democratic process is being subverted, and when I read it, I thought, boy, this is the first time I've probably agreed with anything I've heard him say in a long time. I agree it's been subverted too. I think where we would disagree is the length of time it has been now that democracy's been subverted here in Radnor. For some of us, it appears that for years, some commissioners vote not on the merits of a particular resolution or ordinance, but on the basis of relationships and long-standing friendships with parties involved. When these friends come before you asking for variances and legal changes and exceptions, you ask them a few questions, make their attorney work and sweat a little bit, but there's always a point at which your good friend gets a little smile, a wink, or a nod of reassurance, as if to say, don't worry, we just have to appear to challenge you a little to play along with the pretense of a democratic process. But you'll get what you want. Some of us are members of private clubs that seem more democratic than Radnor Township has been for the past few years. You know, when the March 31st vote was made, a couple of you said, this is the way democracy works. It's the way things are done everywhere, in Harrisburg, too. My God, I hope we're not as bad as Harrisburg. If the ethics board says there's no conflict, great. The potential fourth vote isn't tainted, and you can vote again. If the ethics board says there is a conflict, by rescinding for now, you'll have avoided a big problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yiannopoulos. Is there anybody else that wants to comment? All right. I don't see anybody, so we have a motion and a second to rescind ordinance 2013-21, and we're voting on ordinance 2014-04. All those in favor of rescinding ordinance 2313-21 say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay.
Nay.
The motion fails 2-4. All right, I think I'm finished being the artificial chair.
But it comes right back at you with Public Works and Engineering item number I, letter I.
Oh. All right, we have Resolution 2014-42, which is 229 West Wayne Avenue. Traffic signal, I think the developer is in the audience tonight, Mr. Holloway. And is there in our materials, I believe there is a memorandum. Is Mr. Norsini still?
I'm going to speak for Mr. Norsini.
Okay, thank you.
As part of 229, they were required to do some traffic signal improvements. And as part of those improvements, PennDOT requires a resolution from the board supporting the changes to the traffic signal, and also the completion of the TE 160 form, which identifies how we will maintain the signal in the future on behalf of the township. And also, there will be a Mylar that will be signed by the township supporting those changes. I've reviewed the plans and discussed it with Steve, and all of the changes are to the satisfaction of the township. So I would recommend that you proceed with the resolution.
Did PennDOT ask for these or require these because of the increase in traffic at the development site?
I believe that they were precipitated because there were some ADA improvements that were done on the corner, and there were some driveway revisions, and it affected the traffic signal operation, so the improvements were because of that.
Okay.
Is there any commissioner comments or questions?
Two quick questions. The form that's here in the front has Elaine's name, and then it has her official title as chairperson, which
Yeah.
I wondered, is that because that's the title the state uses? They don't recognize president?
This is just the format that PennDOT gives it to you in and requires you to complete it. It could have been transferred into another format, but since this is how PennDOT was looking for it, it was sent back in that manner.
Oh, I have no problem with the form. I'm questioning the title.
I'm not sure. I didn't complete
I mean,
that
if that's
section.
a title they use, fine, but if it's not, we should accurately reflect what Elaine's title is.
I don't think there'd be a problem if you needed to strike it out and initial.
Really, I'm not too worried about
Well,
it.
it's not correct.
So, John, is unanimous consent to strike it out and write president?
Sure.
Very good.
Yep, fine.
And secondly, I was just curious why it wasn't on the consent agenda, because it seems like a no, never mind. Just a
No, just
question.
missed it. Yeah,
Right.
could have put it on the
I'll
consent
move the
agenda.
approval of the resolution.
Second?
Any other comment from the commissioners or staff? Any comment from the public? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 7-0. Commissioner Spengler, do you have anything for public safety?
Nothing I need.
Finance and audit, Commissioner Fisher?
No report?
Library, Commissioner Booker?
No report.
Public health, Commissioner Nagel?
One item, Public Health, the Board of Health would like to send a letter to the school board recommending that they expand their smoking policy to include e-cigs, the electronic cigarettes. I don't really think we need to act on that. It seems to me it's very appropriate for that board to take that action, but they still wanted me to bring it up here.
Okay, thank you. Any old business? Any new business?
Yeah, you go ahead. All right. I've learned, I attended a meeting with Representative William Adolph about 10 days ago. It was very, very beneficial. And among other things, he informed the members at the meeting who were township officials in his district that the state legislature has appropriated $2.3 billion over the next 5 years for transportation projects throughout Pennsylvania. And Radnor would be eligible for transportation-related projects. We just have to submit the necessary grant applications. Bob, I know you're well involved or informed on this, and I have a couple that I have in mind for this. They're transportation-related. I won't mention them now. But the other 6 commissioners on this board would, I think, want to take a look around and find places where we can do some improvements. This is money from the state. It's, bridges. It's money that will come out of increase in the state gasoline tax.
Does it include pedestrian transportation?
Yes.
Trails?
Yep. Anything transportation related. Just stretch the phrase as far as you can.
Okay, thank you.
Do you want to discuss items at the next meeting? What do you want to?
Well,
I'll just.
Any one of us can, sure, bring
So,
it up.
to Elaine's point, that includes things like crosswalks and traffic calming measures on state roads especially. And Garrett Hill has had in their master plan improved crosswalks at the light of Garrett and Conestoga for 4 or 5 years now. That would be a good thing to throw on the list. And anything else in Wayne, we're paying for the crosswalk in Wayne. That might have qualified. So
Right, that
we
might
may
have
still be
qualified.
able to get some money for that. So.
Thank you. Any other new business?
Yes, yeah. Actually, the tax in Pennsylvania is actually the oil company franchise tax. The liquid fuels tax rate has gone to 0 in Pennsylvania, and they've increased the oil company franchise tax and added additional provisions. So that's where that money comes from, just for your edification. Earlier this evening, one of my neighbors and a great person indicated that I had sent a letter out. Here's a letter that we received today from Brandywine. Brandywine, in this letter, has provided information regarding their investigation of the shall I say, the non-taking of work by one planner, Mr. Amy, with respect to the biomed site and developing a by right analysis. I will assure everyone on this board that I have not, in fact, sent this to anyone, although I think it's a public document, and I'm certainly provided available to do that if I wanted to. I have not. As a matter of fact, I did not receive this until yesterday, and it was only when Biomed discovered that they had originally sent this to Kevin Higgins and not to me that I even got a copy of it. So this letter has been out. This letter has been provided to everyone else. I was the last person to get it. So I will assure this board, not that I think there was anything wrong with it, but that I did not, in fact, send this to anyone. I think that Mr. Murphy is a great constituent and a great person, and he makes a very valid point, and his points are all completely valid. However, I think that when he looks at it, he will see that that was not something that I sent him, but this is in the public domain. I actually received it from someone in the public.
Any other new business? All right, is there a motion to oh, I'm sorry, public participation. Is there any public comment?
Why do I always get stuck at 11 o'clock?
Hi, Jim.
Jim Schneller. I wanted to make a quick comment on the transportation budget allocations. If someone could apply for a bus shelter at the King of Prussia Road, SEPTA Route 100 trolley corner. That trolley has become twice as busy in the past 5 years after gas prices jumped.
Wait, which corner?
This is the corner of Centacor.
Okay.
The driveway to the Route 100 trolley and King of Prussia Road.
The bus stops there so people can transfer.
And also the Lancaster Pike bus pulls in there and then goes routes right around to Darby Paoli. It's very busy, and a bus shelter would be a great reason also to have a trash receptacle, because there isn't one there. Literally, I mean, from 7 a.m. till 9 a.m., there are always 5 or more people there waiting for the bus. And second of all,
I think that's a good idea. I use the Route 100 trolley quite often, and I see the people, but it never occurred to me that a shelter there would be a good thing to have.
thanks. And also, the Garrett Hill plan includes a proposal for a bus shelter on Lancaster Pike, which would be kind of picturesque. Break up Lancaster Pike a little bit. Second of all, in a little bit more serious tone, I am honestly ashamed that there is a canine chipping promotion going on by way of our township. I don't want to go into the details, but I think that mandatory chipping of animals is a truth in Europe, and I've heard it's going to be mandatory in the United States, and we have a strong danger of just getting the public acclimated to chipping of anything with blood running through its veins, which means that we're next. I don't believe that chipping is far off in the future for humans, and I am deeply alarmed by the fact that our township would promote some kind of seemingly innocent effort. And good night.
Thank you, Jim. Is there any other public comment?
Move we adjourn?
Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.